You're live.
Hello from Florida. And hello, Minneapolis. Hello, Virginia. I'm Tony.
And I'm Leona. Welcome to
Tony and Leona Live, as we like to say. This is our very first broadcast, so we thank you in advance for all your understanding. And we're just learning the ropes here. But we got an exciting show. It's an exciting day, evening. We're going to be following closely the elections in Virginia.
the governor election.
Yep, the governor election in particular. They have a few other states or state legislature seats. We're going to follow Minneapolis. What's going on there, Leona?
Mayoral election and also some ballot initiatives.
Yep. So we thank everybody for joining us, and we're going to try to connect here. Leona, you wanted to talk about a few things.
Yeah.
Oh, there we are. Keep going.
Just checking out the technical aspect of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Elon Musk.
Mm-hmm. What about?
I did think that was interesting. So the UN World Food Program, WFP, their director, his name is David Beasley. He called out Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and said that they could end world hunger. And Elon Musk replied, David Beasley said, this part I'm not sure of, is that 2% of Elon Musk's wealth would end world hunger. So Elon Musk replied and said that would be $6 billion. He said he would donate it. I think specifically he would sell his stocks in Tesla if the World Food Program, so that branch of the UN, if they could lay out how $6 billion would end world hunger. CNN and many other sources reported on this, and David Beasley from the UN did reply, and he basically said it wouldn't end world hunger, but it would help the 24 million people who are in danger of immediate starvation. And what were the other things he specifically said? It would help. It would help with political stabilization, and there was one other thing, and that these things would help directly to end world hunger. Mm-hmm. One interesting thing that I saw a few people share that I did look into to verify, and it is true, in 2020, so last year alone, the World Food Program raised $8.4 billion. And again, they're saying that $6 billion of Elon Musk's money could end world hunger.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. The claim?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
is he defending it? Is he saying that he does support that, or
Elon Musk?
Yeah.
Well, in his tweet, he said that he would sell his stock in Tesla to help end world hunger if the UN could lay out publicly how $6 billion would end world hunger. And I guess the reason I think it's interesting is because it's something that matters very much. It's something that we should all care about. I mean, we have a, what's it called? Progressive tax. What's it called? I can't think of the word.
Progressive tax.
Yeah, in the U.S. So I know that wealthy people do pay a larger percentage of taxes. We still have extremely wealthy people in the world. I think Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are the most wealthy in the world, correct? Mm-hmm. So I personally think that if you have whatever you have, that we have a duty to give of what we have. So if you're one of the most wealthy people in the world, I think you ought to be very generous with what you have.
It's just a little bit short-sighted, though, right? Because even if he did give out all his money, what impact would that make?
Right.
Would that advance it, or is the advancement made from him pursuing his enterprise?
Yeah, and that's why I think it's interesting that last year alone, this branch of the UN raised over the amount of money that they're seeing Elon Musk would need to donate to end world hunger. So if that's true, I would think last year they should have ended world hunger since they raised more than that. And I'm not saying that to laugh at it, like, oh, that's so silly. Wealth can do a lot of things. And if you have a lot of wealth, you should be generous with it. But I guess I wonder if maybe some of the divide in the world is because some people think it is that easy. Like, oh, if the wealthiest people just gave, I guess I assume they do give something, but if they gave more, or maybe they don't give, and if they gave, all of these problems would be fixed. And I'm not certain that's true. And given that we already have a progressive tax system here, like when would it be enough? When, you know, and what's ultimately the goal? The other thing is our federal government wastes so much money. Rand Paul on his Instagram page lays out every Wednesday, Waste Wednesday, and he sources it really well, the amount of money that we spend on mostly absurd things. And I guess I just don't get, why wouldn't we, given that we already have a progressive tax system here, why wouldn't we start with what our government does spend money on? Like, our government itself could spend money much better. We could be feeding far more people if that was truly our goal.
Yep. So going back to the elections here, again, we're going to be focusing on the election in Virginia, the governor's race there. It's between Terry McAuliffe and Glenn Youngkin. Virginia has not had a Republican Virginian win statewide since 2009. So that's the last time. This appears to be somewhat of a close race. The people who have been watching it, or the analysts, are saying that one of the reasons beyond COVID that is giving Glenn Youngkin his rise. He's a Republican. It's an open seat. The current Virginian governor, he's termed out, so he's done. So it's an open seat. It's between Terry McAuliffe and Glenn Youngkin. But one of the battlegrounds has been education. The Virginian school boards, these are local issues, but a lot of parents there have been upset with the education reforms through CRT and some other issues. And it's really gotten Terry in a lot of hot water. You know, he said during the debate that the Virginia schools do not teach CRT, critical theory, at all. But somebody went to the Virginia State Education website, and it definitely said on the website, I don't know if they've changed it since then, but that their teachers are encouraged to teach critical race theory, to engage it, to learn it.
Do you know what age? Was that high school,
I don't know what
elementary?
age. I don't know what age, but I think it's K through 12.
Okay.
So it's K through 12 public education. That would be my guess, unless somebody knows otherwise. So that's a big race. Hasn't been lost by Democrats statewide in Virginia since 2009. That's a similar trajectory to Minnesota.
Minnesota's longer though.
It is. It's Governor Tim Pawlenty. He was the last Republican to win statewide in Minnesota.
And that was 20 years ago?
That was probably 2006.
Oh, okay.
I think is when he was up for his last 4-year term that he won, if I remember correctly, because we're on 20. Governor Walz is up for re-election in 2022 next year. So a year from now, which is something that we want to do with the show, is we want to, there's a lot we want to do with the show. But going back to the elections here, it's 7:05, 7:12. I think the polls are closing soon in Virginia. So we're probably going to hear first kind of what the initial results are. And I'm assuming they're going to have many of the absentee ballots counted right away. Hopefully, if lessons have been learned from 2020, that's a good idea to count those in advance. A lot of the states that did that procedure, they were able to get their counts done earlier. So I'm assuming that they're probably counting the absentee ballots first. And there's been a tremendous amount of absentee ballots that have been cast, both in Virginia and in Minneapolis. I was just reading on KSTP that there's a record number of absentee ballots cast so far in the Minneapolis election. And of course, the mayor's election is in Minneapolis right now. There's also that referendum, which is to dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department and essentially replace it with, this is what the ballot question says, and it's kind of confusing, but replace it with a Department of Public Safety. So that's what the Minneapolis voters are going to be deciding, along with mayor and the city council. So a lot's happened in Minneapolis in the last year. So
are all the city council members up for re-election, or just some?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I could find out, but yeah, I mean, we could talk a little bit, while we're waiting for the poll to open, just where we are, why we're here. We just moved to Florida. How long have we been here for, Leona?
Not even 2 weeks.
not even 2 weeks, and we're in our new house. We sold our house in northern Minnesota, and
Last summer we sold our house in St. Paul.
Minnesota Heights,
Minnesota Heights, yep.
and then sold our cabin, and we moved to Florida. Tell everyone a little bit about our experiences moving. How was it?
I'm glad the move is over. I'll
We
say
moved
that.
this piano behind us, if you can believe that. So,
yeah. We got that from some friends, which was a huge gift. But man, getting it in the moving truck was a beast.
Yep.
Our 8-year-old son Tony and I think we're lucky that the 3 of us are all still alive and we got the piano in. But we did it.
It almost fell off the ramp.
It did. Yep. Tony drove the moving truck down, and I drove our car with a trailer behind it. We made it safely, which I'm very grateful for. And yeah, we're here. I mean, we miss everyone in Minnesota a lot.
I'm looking
Miss
at the
fall
weather
a
right
little
now.
bit.
It says it's 38 degrees in Minneapolis right now. I don't miss that.
As it gets colder in Minnesota, I have to say I miss the weather less, but we miss people very, very much. All 5 of us do. Our kids do too, even our youngest. But we've already met some wonderful people here, and which I'm very grateful for. And I like the house that we're in right now, and yeah, a lot to be grateful for.
Yep.
We're here safe, we're together, and we have the ability to come here and do something different, and very grateful. Very, very grateful.
And we've celebrated our first Halloween here. There's some differences in Florida that are good, but we just didn't anticipate. One is that I don't know if you ever knew this, but they do the trash twice a week.
They do, yeah. The neighbors here were like, well, yeah, otherwise it smells so bad. So trash comes twice a week, recycling once a week.
People put their meat in the freezer. Like if you scrape off your plate and there's like extra chicken on there that you want to throw away, some people put that in the freezer until it's trash day.
Yep.
We learned that.
Yeah.
Halloween was fun here.
It was,
the kids had a great time. We would say, though, it's not as celebrated as widespread as it is in the Midwest. Do you notice that?
Yeah, the area where we went was awesome. It's like an area that very specifically decorates for Halloween. Almost everyone was out at a table on their driveway. I don't know if they did that pre-COVID or if it's because of COVID, but it was very much set up for Halloween, like incredible decorations on many of the houses. One of the houses had cotton candy. One of the houses had Jello shots for the adults. And yeah, so I mean, that area was super fun, but there wasn't a single trick-or-treater on our street. We left candy out when we got back. All the same candy was there. Whereas in Minnesota, we would do that when we'd go trick-or-treating, we'd leave candy and it would be gone. I mean, we'd have to like refill it after a little bit of trick-or-treating. So we got to go to an All Saints Day party as well. We had every intention of beginning this show by remembering those we love who have passed. Today is All Souls Day. So we in Christian Church, in the Catholic Christian Church, at least we celebrate Feast of All Souls Day, where we pray specifically that all souls, but particularly those who we know and love, are in heaven or will be soon, and then can intercede for us there. So,
Druzy, you okay over there? Yeah. Okay, good. So we have our kids that are sitting here while we do the live stream.
Yep.
So he's just coughing a little bit. Just a normal
I think
cold.
it's actually on Halloween candy. I don't think it's a cold.
Oh, he's choking on Halloween.
Yes.
So we still don't have any updates from the Virginia poll race here yet. Neither from Minneapolis. So Minneapolis their polls close at 8:00 Central. Okay, so that means what? It's like another hour and 42 minutes.
Yeah, hour and 42 minutes from now. Yeah, so that'll be a while still.
Great. Well, let's see what the ETA is for Virginia. And just for anybody who's tuning in and out, this is our first live stream. We're still working the kinks out of our live stream, learning how to do it. We don't know, is this microphone working good? Hello. I don't know if that microphone is hooked up, actually. I think it's actually on that one there. But
That's the one that
I don't know how to adjust it. So thank you for everybody's patience in terms of just allowing us to work out the kinks here during our first live stream. Appreciate everyone who tunes in. Feel free to comment about what you think is going to happen It says the Virginia polls are closing now. So we should be able to get some results in pretty soon. I'm going to be looking at KSTP. That's where I'm going to be watching for Minneapolis. I don't know if we should look at WCCO, but if you want to pull up some things on your phone
Sure.
too, if anyone can contribute anything that they're seeing. I like CNN's election coverage. I do, even though they're completely biased. Like they do a pretty good job covering the numbers. Some say they are a little overly aggressive with covering them, but nonetheless, they provide the information that we need. So, Leona, were you hesitant about moving at all to Florida?
Well, for years, I said no to any move away from Minnesota because I didn't want to leave the many people we love in Minnesota. And Tony felt the same way, but for other reasons, still thought that a move might be the best thing for our family. And I think traveling the last year, we were all in Florida together, summer of 2020, and then we were all in California together the fall into the winter of 2020 into 2021, when I worked as a nurse, did travel contracts, and being away as a family, I think made me realize that different states are a little bit different, and the pain of being away isn't gone, but there's a lot of peace about, I think this is best for our family right now.
Yeah. And we're actively trying to recruit people to move to Florida too.
Yes.
It's a great place, especially in the Naples area. There's a lot of young families here. The economy is vibrant. There's nice parks.
Mm-hmm.
You can play baseball year round.
It's true.
Lots of swimming pools. Good stuff.
Beautiful beaches.
Yeah.
Did you say that?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to test something out.
Yeah.
You talk here. I'm going to go in the other room and see what it sounds like.
Okay.
Just keep talking.
So I'm looking to see if there's any information on the election in Minnesota. I've talked to a few friends who have voted already today, which is awesome. Huge kudos to all those who did. Yep, polls open until 8 p.m., as Tony said.
Where, in Minneapolis?
Mm-hmm.
Keep talking.
So I think everyone knows that Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, he's running for his second term. And then Minneapolis is using ranked choice voting, which would be an interesting thing to talk about in and of itself. That's a bunk bed behind us. It looks like we have a huge iron gate, but we don't. It's a bunk bed. Nothing in yet. And then, like Tony was saying before, there's the referendum to replace the police department. I know Tony had the actual wording for that. We should find it again. There's also the rent control ballot question. I think that's in Minneapolis, both Minneapolis and St. Paul. And then the St. Paul mayoral election. Again, the current mayor, Melvin Carter, is running for re-election, just like in Minneapolis. Their mayor is running for re-election as well. Rent control ballot question, as I said. And then it's the school board for both. So I think that's it. That was one of our kids. I don't know if that came through. I don't know how well it picks up. Yeah, so the referendum on the police department is only in Minneapolis, not St. Paul, but both cities have the question on rent control. Not seeing anything yet. Can look and see if anything's coming through in Virginia. Virginia polls closing. Virginia exit poll. CNN says in their exit poll, the majority of voters disapprove of Biden. Let's see.
So this is Tony and Leona Live. It's our very first live stream. We're waiting for election results on the gubernatorial race in Virginia, the mayoral races in the Twin Cities in Minnesota, and then the referendum on the police department in Minneapolis, and also the question on rent control in both Minneapolis and St. Paul. Hi.
So
Looking to see.
I got some news.
What's that?
Microphone's not working.
Oh, okay.
Is this playing here?
I think I just started playing something, an ad or something.
So this microphone's not working.
Okay.
Hello. Sorry. Again, we're just learning. First time broadcasting. So, do we have any results in yet?
I have not seen anything yet. I looked through Minneapolis, St. Paul, and then in Virginia as well. So both Minneapolis and St. Paul have the question on rent control.
What's
Only
the question?
Minneapolis has the referendum. I don't know actually.
Can you look it up?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, there's a lot of news on the this election front, though. It's going to be groundbreaking what comes out of Minneapolis. I'm a little bit concerned by the record number of absentee voters that's being reported in Minneapolis. And Steve Simon, the Secretary of State of Minnesota, he came out with a statement saying that they had a record number of absentee voters in Minneapolis.
Wow.
And he accounts it to the excitement that people feel towards the election, which may or may not be true. The only problem I really have with it, I'm all for people having excitement towards elections, and everyone who's legal should go out and vote. The only question I have, though, is excitement isn't a reason to get an absentee ballot. Maybe they still have the COVID measures in line, but the only real reason to do absentee voting is that you can't vote on election day. Like, you may be out of town, you may know you have a surgery scheduled. You potentially are a veteran, or not a veteran, but you're overseas serving. Those are the typical reasons for absentee ballots. So the fact that there is so many of
If you're
them,
working that day, you can't get
work, sure, yeah. But even though employers are obligated to give you time to go vote,
You
aren't
can't,
they?
though, for example, as a nurse, you can't leave the shift as a nurse. So if I was scheduled to work on election day, I would vote. I mean, I only did it once, but I voted absentee when I knew that I couldn't.
But you
leave.
could have gone, or no?
I mean, you can't.
In
I mean,
the
that's the
ICU.
thing.
In the ICU.
Yeah, on any floor. I mean, you can't. If you're in, maybe in an outpatient setting, you could try to do that between patient visits, but inpatient, you can't just have people leave. So, so the ballot question for this is from Fox 9, the St. Paul rent control ballot question. It might be different in Minneapolis. So, voters in St. Paul will decide today whether to enact one of the strictest rent control measures in the nation. The ballot question asks voters whether landlords should be prohibited from raising rents by more than 3% in a 12-month period, regardless of whether there's a change in occupancy. It says landlords could apply for an exemption. And like we said before, this is the only question on the ballot for St. Paul residents this year.
I'm going to make this a little closer so I can maybe get a little better audio. Looks like the first results are coming in from Virginia. Still don't see anything yet here, but let's see what we got. Were you still reading that?
That's pretty much it.
What about, can you look up the ballot question for the police dismantling the Minneapolis Police Department? Because I know there was a lot of controversy, a lot of back and forth about exactly how they were going to word this. And I read some today, but I was like, is that what it actually looks like? Read that on Ballotpedia.
Ballotpedia.
So this is what the measure says. It's question number 2. Read it from the top.
Replace police department with Department of Public Safety initiative, November 2021. A yes vote supports this charter amendment to replace the Minneapolis Police Department with a Department of Public Safety, have the mayor nominate and the city council approve a person to serve as DPS commissioner. So this new Department of Public Safety commissioner. And then it would also remove language from the Minneapolis City Charter on the police department, including minimum police funding requirements and the mayor's control of the police department. A no vote opposes this charter amendment, thus maintaining the existing structure of the MPD in the Minneapolis charter. And a 51% vote is required for the approval of question 2. So simple majority. So who would be in charge of this Department of Public Safety? I know the mayor would nominate, a person to serve as the commissioner, but it would remove the mayor's control of the police department. So who would be in charge? Like,
I don't know.
Yeah.
The Department of Public Safety.
like who? Like right now, there's the Minneapolis Police Department. The mayor's in charge of them. So if the police department is replaced with the Department of Public Safety, no one controls that.
Well,
DPS,
there'd be somebody in charge of the DPS. I don't know if it's a commissioner or somebody, but that's probably who it would be.
The mayor would nominate.
Yeah.
So that would just be.
Yeah, but there's been a lot of complaints about the complexity and of the wording of it and what it exactly means, and this is why I actually think this question is going to fail, is because it's not clear what would be created, and there's too many open questions, and Minneapolis is suffering right now. The people there, the families there. How many children have been shot in Minneapolis alone this year? And it's just a terrible, horrible, sad amount. And the people who are being affected the most are people of color, poor people, and they're starting to speak out. And they have over the last few months saying, we want more police, not less.
Interestingly, people spoke out very clearly to the Minneapolis City Council prior to the summer of 2020. I didn't know this until the summer of 2020 when I was looking to see, like, what do people who are directly being affected by this want? And that's when I found so many people. I mean, I have it somewhere saved, like the screenshots of these people's names who went to the Minneapolis City Council, again, prior to the summer of 2020 and said, we want more police officers. Then I'm not saying that necessarily means that's how people in Minneapolis feel now, but it was interesting to see that and to learn that.
I wish it would have put something about the mandates in the actual ballot question. That would have been interesting. Do Minneapolis residents support mandates?
Do you mean like mass vaccine mandates?
Just health mandates. Yep. Be interesting to see what the people would say for that. I don't think we're going to see that though. I still don't see any numbers, Leona, do you, for Virginia?
I don't yet.
Okay.
I do not.
We'll keep looking for this. It's gonna be interesting as it comes in.
Virginia election results, New York Times. I don't think anything's in. It's just.
I'm gonna look up this article here.
Currently, per the New York Times, and this is from literally 2 minutes ago, Glenn Youngkin, the Republican, has 52.8%. I'm sorry.
Wow.
That's how many are reporting, right? That's
8%. 8% of votes reported, counted. Glenn Youngkin is in an early lead. He has 133,623 votes, or 52.8% of the vote. And Terry McAuliffe is at 117,587 with 46.4% of the vote. It looks like we have an independent running who has 0.8%, not a whole lot, with 2,091. Can we see, are there any other candidates on this ballot? So 8% of the vote is being reported right now. Thanks for looking that up.
So right now, 9%, it was just updated. 9% reporting. Currently, Glenn Youngkin, the Republican, has 54.2% of the votes, and Terry McAuliffe has 45% of the votes. Independent still has 0.8%.
Here we go. That's a good start for Glenn Youngkin. Again, we don't know. I wish we knew more details about which votes were being counted. Have they looked at only the absentee ballots, or have they looked at those yet?
I don't know for sure. It's a good question, but it does say, so again, this is New York Times. It says Virginia passed a new law requiring counties to pre-process absentee ballots before the election. This should allow officials to report the results of the advance vote soon after the polls close.
Wow.
That still doesn't answer what's currently being reported, but that was passed apparently. It says pre-election polls show McAuliffe, the Democratic candidate, leading among early voters. So he might take an early lead if counties report the early vote first.
Tony, you're looking really good. You know that? I'm a
That's
lucky
kind
man.
of you.
I'm a lucky man.
Don't make me blush.
How do wish I could figure out how to get this microphone to work. That would be a big improvement. People and blogs,
Attorney General.
playlists.
Delegates.
Mama, is the cat a girl?
I don't see. Do you see recording date, license? I don't see that. Keep talking, honey. We want to hear you talk.
Okay.
Just don't say anything controversial. So for people, just to remind us, this is Tony Leona's show. This is our very first live stream. Really, we didn't market it at all. We don't have any subscribers. For anyone who is listening to this, thank you for the people who have subscribed. We appreciate that. We used to have a podcast that we were doing when we were traveling throughout the country during the 2020 election when Leona was a traveling ICU nurse. We're just learning the ropes here, but we plan to live stream more. And I'd like to get like the software where you can live stream and get our microphone hooked up. But we're just trying to work out the kinks for now, using this election as kind of a backbone.
Starting point.
Yep, starting
New
point.
York Times. This is for the Virginia governor election. There is now 14% reported. Glenn Youngkin, the Republican candidate, has 55% of the votes. Terry McAuliffe, the Democratic, has 44%.
It's getting wider. So 14%. We got to reset. Youngkin. Wow, he's still up. Unbelievable.
It is kind of fun to watch the votes come in.
It is.
Too bad we can't have a party and just be with a bunch of people together. So still 14% reported. Youngkin is currently up. No reports from Minneapolis or St. Paul yet, but we will be watching that closely. We love Minnesota and the people there dearly.
So what's the ETA for the votes to come into Minneapolis?
So it'll be in 24 minutes. It said polls will close at 7 p.m. there. Mm-hmm. So 24 minutes.
If I was Governor Walz and I'm watching this, I would start to be nervous.
If you were watching the Virginia race?
Oh, yeah. Because if Terry McAuliffe, if he doesn't win, if this is the first time a Virginian Democrat loses statewide in Virginia, this is a bad sign for Walz.
If you didn't hear earlier, that would be the first time since 2009, you said earlier?
2009 in Virginia. And I'm going to find out right now when did Pawlenty
So that was the last statewide
Let's see,
Republican
Pawlenty,
in Minnesota.
Turn.
So currently from the New York Times, while Tony looks that up, 15% of the votes are in for the gubernatorial race in Virginia. The Republican Youngkin has 55.9%. The Democrat Terry McAuliffe has 43%.
Wow.
Again, so that's 15% reported as of this minute.
Oh, here we go. So he was the 39th governor of Minnesota. So he was sworn in 2003, which means he was first elected in 2002.
Okay.
So 2006 would be the last time a Republican won statewide in Minnesota. Again, there's no statewide races in Minnesota right now. I was just making the point that if I was Governor Walz, I would be a little bit nervous watching what's happening in Virginia, especially if the Republican wins, the underdog.
Yeah.
I was watching Youngkin, and he's a great candidate. He's not just in this position because he was but no, he was talking last night. He said when he started his campaign, he had 2% name ID in Virginia. So nobody knew Youngkin, right?
We
didn't know
background. I don't know.
I think he's a businessman.
Okay.
But his main point is he went from no name ID to potentially being the next governor of Virginia, which would be unbelievably remarkable.
Yeah.
Unbelievably remarkable. So let me just, what were we going to look up here? Youngkin's background?
Yeah.
I think he's a business guy, but let's find out. But he came out of nowhere. He ran a good campaign. He has history on his side. And I think he did, whoever was kind of in charge of his imagery, or, I think he just has his look that, his name too. Like he's the Youngkin, like the young buck. He's ready to come in. He looks honest and forthright. He's got his hair that kind of swooshes over. And he kind of looks like a younger Mitt Romney in a way.
It works. Oh,
I don't know if he's going to govern like Mitt Romney. I'm just saying he has that kind of that go get him at
Okay.
look, the all American type look. Let's admit Mitt Romney looks very presidential. You may not like his policies, but his the gray on the sides and how he combs his hair back and his kind of deep set eyes.
I'll grant that.
But
I'll
and
grant that.
there's a lot of Republicans out there who think that Romney would have made a great president.
Yeah.
Maybe he would have. Maybe he would have. Certainly better than some that we got instead, I will say.
It's true. So currently, from the New York Times in Virginia, again, you're watching the gubernatorial race there. If I could speak, 16% of the votes are reported. Youngkin, the Republican, has 55.8%. Mcauliffe, the Democrat, has 43.6%. The Independent has a little less at 0.7.
Wow. So here's Glenn Allen Youngkin, born December 9th, 1966. He's an American businessman. He's a Republican nominee in 2021 Virginia gubernatorial election. Prior to coming in, and this is all from Wikipedia, prior to entering politics, he spent 25 years at the private equity firm, the Carlyle Group, and he later became the CEO of it. Wow, that's pretty impressive. He stepped down from the Carlyle Group in September 2020, and he announced his candidacy, for the 2021 Virginia gubernatorial election. It said Youngkin won the Republican gubernatorial nomination on May 10th, 2021, and he's facing Terry McAuliffe in the general election. And I don't know much about McAuliffe. I think he's had a background. Let's see. He's an American businessman. This again is according to Wikipedia. Terry McAuliffe is an American businessman and politician who served as the 72nd governor of Virginia from 2014 to 2018. So he's been governor before.
Oh, crazy.
And he's a member of the Democratic Party.
So
he was a co-chairman of Bill Clinton's 1996 re-election campaign. He was the chairman of the Democratic National Committee from 2001 to 2005. And he was chairman of Hillary Clinton's 2008 presidential campaign.
Crazy.
So he was, it says McAuliffe was an unsuccessful candidate for the Democratic nomination in 2009 Virginia gubernatorial election. And in 2013, he ran unopposed in the Democratic Party and then defeated Republican Ken Cuccinelli and the Libertarian. So he must have served one term.
So 2013 is the last time they had a Republican there.
Where?
Right?
No. That wasn't occupied by the Republican.
Sorry.
So it's been since 2009.
Gotcha. Yep, my bad.
I guess I didn't. But yeah, I didn't realize he had such close ties with
the Democratic Party.
Well, with the Clintons, especially with the Clintons. What's this? FBI investigation. It said May 23rd, 2016, CNN reported that the Federal Bureau of Investigation, again, this is from Wikipedia, was investigating McAuliffe, who quote, over whether donations to his gubernatorial campaign violated the law. One example cited was a $120,000 donation from Chinese businessman Wang Wanliang, according to CNN. Wang's status as a legal permanent resident of the United States could make the donation legal under U.S. election law. Wow, $120,000. Anyways, you get some updates?
A little bit. In Virginia, the governor's race there, 17% of the votes are reported.
Okay.
Youngkin, the Republican, has 56.6%, and McAuliffe, the Democrat, who we were just talking about, has 42.7%.
Wow.
So
what are the
when
numbers?
we started looking at this, 9% were reported. Right now, 17%.
Okay. And how much time till the Minneapolis polls close? We still have an hour and 17 minutes for that.
It looked like it was going to close at 7. You thought 8 p.m. there, Tim?
I believe
8
it
p.m.
closes,
Central?
doesn't it? Let me look it up. When do Minneapolis polls close? Eight p.m.
Oh, you were
Last
right.
person in line that shows up by 8 p.m. So it can
Okay.
actually, that's why it usually goes a little over.
Sure.
If you're, in Virginia, the polls closed at 7. If you're in line at 6:59 p.m., you can vote. If there's a line out the door, that polling station may not close until 7:30.
Sure. Because everyone needs to get in, right?
Yep. So, any updates there?
Nothing yet.
Nothing.
Nope. I'll go back to my Virginia.
That's the
See
one.
if
That's the
anything
one
is
we're
in.
interested in. If he still has that, if he holds on to this lead, it's not looking good for Mcauliffe. It's still
Could
early
change
on,
though. So 18% reported in Virginia.
Okay.
Republican candidate, if you're just
Ooh.
tuning in.
Yep.
What?
Go ahead.
Glenn Youngkin has 56.7%. Terry Mcauliffe, the Democratic candidate for governor in Virginia, has 42.7%.
Listen to this though. So I have CNN up here,
Ooh.
and they have
that's
different numbers reported.
fascinating.
CNN has. So it says 25% in. How much does it say
and
that?
New York Times now is saying 23%.
Okay, but they have Youngkin at 52% and McAuliffe at 47.3.
That's very different. Whereas the New York Times has Youngkin at 57.3 and McAuliffe at 42%. Interesting.
And I'd love to learn a little bit more about how these numbers get plugged in, but I think that they tap in directly into the lines that the counties or these election centers actually send to their central counting within the state.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know why we would see such a discrepancy. Let's keep comparing that though, because I am
that's very
interested in
interesting.
that. You're still at 57% Youngkin?
Yep, but 23% reporting, whereas CNN had 25% reporting, right? Interesting. Apparently, the New York Times is very conservative. Just kidding. Huh.
In New Jersey, there's also a gubernatorial race in New Jersey, and there is the mayor's race in New York City.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
I forgot about that, but I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure we know what's going to happen in New York
Yeah.
City.
Which is why we
Silwa,
weren't
is that how you say
following
his
this.
name? Silwa. He's ran a great campaign. He's the guy who wears the red beret everywhere he goes. But I don't know if they have the numbers there. I mean, Rudy Giuliani, he did win
in New York.
Yep. So we shouldn't count anything out.
Nope.
People are upset. People want some sort of change. A lot of people, they've seen what's happened over the last couple of years from COVID, what's happened with their schools. It's been a big driver. I can't say that enough. How COVID has changed the parents' perception about what's happening at our public schools.
I think the very, very worst thing is that we shut them down, even when the AAP was saying they can be open.
Bill Gates was saying they should have been open.
Yeah, I mean, that was...
Fauci flip-flopped, went back and forth, I think still does to this day about schools. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who fell through the cracks, and there's a lot of kids that are continuing to fall through the cracks because, they're dropping out of school.
And this isn't like 2 rough months of school. Like if you've been affected by that, we're coming up on 2 years of this.
I mean, there's schools closing in
Crazy.
St. Paul.
Yeah.
And without these students attending school, they don't get the same funding measures. It's going to lead to more schools closing. And you throw that on top of the agenda that's being taught. Lots of parents are considering homeschooling, but let's face it, like there's probably parents out there who chose to homeschool this year who either don't have the time, the resources, or whatever to adequately homeschool their kid.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of kids falling through the cracks in terms of education, and it was instigated or initiated by COVID. And especially in the bluer states where they enacted more harsh COVID policies, those schools were closed longer. They did distance learning for longer. Many not even returning, I don't think, for the entire year of
Last year.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Nothing yet out of what's going on in
What's CNN
Florida.
reporting?
House
House,
20. There
yeah.
must be a special election. It looks like against 2 Republicans.
Mm-hmm. There's another one that was 2 Democrats. I think, in
Ohio.
Florida.
Another House seat in Ohio.
What is CNN saying about the Virginia governor race?
Trying to find it.
Okay. So New York Times is saying 29% reporting now for the Virginia governor race. Glenn Youngkin is at 52.8%.
So it's
and
going
Terry,
down.
Terry McAuliffe at 46.6%.
Yep. Let's see.
And the independent going down even more.
I just
to
refreshed the
0.6%.
page. I wish we could have figured out how to get this microphone on. Where are we?
Figure it out for next time.
You can't yell on me.
Sorry. 29.
So one of the things we're thinking about with the show is I don't think we should necessarily do everything live. Okay, so here it is. Governor, here's what CNN is reporting. Youngkin, 52.3%. Mcauliffe, 47.0%. 430,393 votes to 386,614.
So that's pretty close to what New York Times is saying now.
And it's saying that Youngkin is 43,779 votes ahead right now. It looks like they're going to update again. We got 27% in. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 52.3 to 47. It's getting closer now, huh? Hold on. Let's talk.
It is getting closer. To be expected. We'll see. I always think it's interesting to know when an election is called and how different news sources call at different times and how much needs to be reported and how they determine all of that. So we will see. So CNN is still saying 52.3% Youngkin, 47% McAuliffe. New York Times is saying 52.9% Youngkin. It's about the same. And 46.5% McAuliffe. New York Times has a few more reporting, though. New York Times has 29% reported. CNN has 27%.
Sorry about that.
Very similar.
It's a tight race.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to go down to the wire. What if we have to be up all night? I've done it before. That's what I did during the 2020 election.
I went to bed eventually. I went to bed late, though.
Let's see here.
Minneapolis? Anything from there?
Yes, we're going to read something here. We're going to read about the controversy.
What are you drinking? Coffee?
Yep, and tea.
Coffee and tea?
So I have to go pee all the time.
You know what I'm drinking?
What?
You know, I think, right? Always.
What?
Always coffee.
Coffee. Let's see. This was the big. This was the big one. Trying to find a good,
Thanks, Chris.
a good source here. Town Hall.
Yeah. Is this about Terry McAuliffe?
Yep. So Terry McAuliffe, critical race theory is made up, and parents concerned about it are racists. This is from townhall.com, and the author is, to see. We don't know. Read it.
Virginia Democratic gubernatorial candidate Terry McAuliffe handed his Republican opponent a golden soundbite during a recent debate. Education was already a hot and contentious issue in the campaign, and McAuliffe crystallized the divide by stating that parents should not determine what is taught in schools. Oh, he's the one who said that?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that was him.
Mm-hmm.
His deference to the education bureaucracy has been a source of criticism on issues ranging from previous school closures to controversial curriculum items to other woke fault lines, according to this town hall article. In one fell swoop, Mcauliffe sided against parents as the primary drivers of their own children's education, and the Youngkin campaign has been pounding away in ads ever since. Mcauliffe hasn't backed down. He doubled down in a local interview a few days later. Just last week, in a roundtable discussion, he allowed his contempt to boil over yet again. He denied that CRT is a real issue, smearing parents concerned about their kids being indoctrinated with racial essentialism poison as racists engaged in dog whistles, all while rebuffing efforts to get him to define the term. Which, side note, I think is important. I probably don't agree with everything here, but that definition is very important. It's difficult to even determine, is CRT taught or not being taught. I think CRT began as a theory discussed in law school.
Yep, as Ben Shapiro likes to say.
What does he like to say?
He just said he learned about it at Harvard.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I know he's an attorney, so that doesn't surprise me. But I know a lot of people say, like, there's no way CRT is being taught in elementary schools or even high schools. It's a theory taught in law school.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I know that the physiology and biology courses I took in nursing school were not the same as what I took in my freshman year of high school, but it was still
What was that freshman year?
the same
What did you
biology.
take?
But it was still biology. And so if the theory is that you're sort of predestined to do or not do certain things based on your race, that is certainly something that could be brought down to an elementary level or to a high school level. And if it is, that's something to be discussed. I don't think people, if it's not being taught, then yeah, we should stop discussing it. But we shouldn't just gaslight the potential concern when at least some schools have done things like have children stand and pretend that they.
Yeah. Well, I mean, his severe ties to the Clintons and to the party. I mean, it's no surprise. I saw him on, I think it was Meet the Press, but he was just saying repeatedly, racist dog whistle, racist dog. He must have said that 4 or 5 times in regards to anyone who opposes critical race theory, any parent that's concerned about what they're teaching in the schools. And it's how he framed it, just repeatedly. I mean, the guy's a professional politician. There's no doubt about it. Do we have any updates with that race?
Professional politician in that he repeats the same thing
Just
over
repeats
and over.
it, yeah. And you know, it's the same thing. If you heard that montage where they were like, this is not about Trump. And it was like Trump, over and over again.
Yeah. Okay. From the New York
Read
Times,
it.
governor election results. Glenn Youngkin, the Republican, has 54.5% currently. Terry McAuliffe has 44.8% currently. According to the New York Times, 36% of the votes are in. So 36% reported. Youngkin, the Republican, up at 54.5%.
Ooh, wow.
McAuliffe at 44.8%.
Wow. And just for anybody who's tuning in, this is our first live stream show. We're just kind of working out the kinks here. We got the kids running around. But we wanted to broadcast over this first election here. And we plan to do so regularly here over the next year until the next election. Our focus isn't always going to be politics. It's just something that we like to discuss, something that we like to keep active. But we're going to have a whole wide variety of topics on the show. But we thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you for listening.
What are
And-
some other topics we'll talk about?
That we will. Parenting, current events,
Marriage.
marriage. I like to talk about economic stuff, but I think that bores some people.
I like to talk about it with you. That's certainly an area where I learned directly from you.
Cryptocurrencies.
Oh yeah, you like
Ethereum just hit its all-time high. It's kind of the nature of our economy these days. I think somebody could make a great movie called All Time High. Just that would be like the typecast for the last few years in the market, especially. It's like always a new high. Like the Dow Jones just hit a new all-time high, and it just seems like things are going up that way. Any more
That's a good
updates
point.
with Virginia?
36% reporting still. Oh, 37% reporting. I spoke too soon. Glenn Youngkin, the Republican, 54.8%.
Nice.
Terry McAuliffe, the Democrat, 44.6%.
Yep, that's roughly the same as what CNN is reporting. Not looking good for Democrats right now. Like I said before, if I was Governor Tim Walz, I'd be shaking in my boots right now. I'd be thinking, gosh, this is going to be a rough election for me in 2022 because Minnesota's got a lot of similarities to Virginia. We talked earlier about how Pawlenty he's the last Republican to win a statewide election in Minnesota, and that was in 2006, was it? So it's been a while. It's been 15 plus years since anyone who's a non-DFLer has won statewide in Minnesota.
And
It's
then
pretty
similarly,
amazing.
if you just joined us, Virginia has not had a Republican statewide since 2009, you were saying, right?
2009 was the last time.
So in that sense, they're somewhat similar. Question.
Hmm.
Do you know that you like Terry Mcauliffe and his policies, what he stands for? Or do you know that you don't like, Glenn Youngkin and his policies? Or do you dislike Terry Mcauliffe? Do you know, like, are you certain that
Youngkin is going
better?
to be. No, I'm not certain at all. I just know that his background, and I know what McAuliffe's background is. And McAuliffe is a professional Democratic politician, and he comes off that way too. And I think he's actually driving a lot of these late voters, undecided voters. That's what the polls were showing at the end, where these undecided independents were flocking to Youngkin. Why? I don't think that it's necessarily that they have so much faith in Youngkin. It's just more that McAuliffe comes off as kind of like a greasy used car salesman who just has to repeat the talking points over and over and over and over again and hope that he can basically garner up enough of those easy votes to win. But we'll see. There's record turnout. I had friends telling me that they had more absentee ballots in Virginia than ever before. The same was in Minneapolis.
Minnesota apparently had the same. Yeah.
How is that going to affect what the actual ultimate results are? We don't know. And Minneapolis, they should be getting their results out in how long? Got about an hour.
An hour. Excuse me.
Great.
Yep.
So, any maybe you should read the what the question is, question 2 for Minneapolis again.
Yeah. So on the ballot in Minneapolis, Minnesota, question 2: replace police department with Department of Public Safety initiative. A yes vote supports this charter amendment to 1. Replace the Minneapolis Police Department with a Department of Public Safety. 2. Have the mayor nominate and the city council approve a person to serve as DPS commissioner. And 3. Remove language from the Minneapolis City Charter on the police department, including minimum police funding requirements and the mayor's control of the police department. A no vote opposes this charter amendment, thus maintaining the existing structure of the MPD in the Minneapolis Charter.
What would you vote if that was you?
I would vote no. Crime has risen, and I think that we need police reform. I am all for police reform.
What do you mean by police reform?
I don't know. I would have to look into the details. I just know.
Are you just
we
saying
can
that
do
because
better.
that's what everybody says we need is police reform, or is
No,
there like
I think
actual?
I think that there are enough actual issues that there needs to be some reform. I read a fair amount of Senator Tim Scott's bill right after George Floyd, and I agreed with everything I read. I know that he banned chokehold, not he, but the bill would have, if it had been passed, banned chokeholds. I think it increased education. I think it actually increased funding for police departments.
What did?
Senator Tim Scott's bill after George Floyd, and I
Well,
agree
the
with
the feds don't really fund a whole lot of local police departments. Local police departments are funded by local measures and taxes
Oh, yeah.
and
Maybe it didn't do
citations
that
and
then.
things of that sort. Susie, what do you need? Okay, good.
But I agreed with his bill, which was fairly sweeping.
But what sort of
legislation across
reform
the
do you
whole-
think they would need in Minneapolis? Because I mean, that's ultimately what they're proposing is to get rid of the Minneapolis Police Department,
Mhm.
more or less defund it from the charter, so
Mhm.
that wouldn't exist. So changing the Minneapolis charter and then replacing it with the Department of Safety. And that Department of Safety arguably could bring about the changes faster that you still haven't said that you
Maybe.
think are needed.
But I don't have any idea what it would do. I have no idea what it would be. I don't know who would staff it. I don't.
And that's why
would all
ultimately
the
I think
police
it's going to fail.
officers from the MPD
Mhm.
automatically become part of the DPS, this new Department of Public Safety? And I guess my main question is why? Like, if reforms need to be made, why not reform the police officers that we already have within the system we have? Why, like, obliterate a system, create a new system that will somehow be better? Why not name the things that are wrong, fix the things that are wrong? I don't think it makes sense. I mean, it seems sort of arbitrary. Like, it addresses none of the issues. It's not actually bringing up an issue and saying this issue needs reform, so let's reform it. That makes far more sense to me than, yeah, it seems honestly like a pretty silly proposal, to be honest. Not silly because there doesn't need to be some change, but name what needs to change and name what you will change. How would you vote?
I'd vote no, mainly because I'm not an expert on what sort of reforms are
No,
going
me
to make police more accountable. I do know on rare instances I have seen horrific videos where
Yeah.
police don't think that they're being filmed, or somebody catches on. They do violent or abusive things to people that are awful.
Yeah.
And I think that body cams and having body cams on at most times and most stops will probably go a long way. I know in there's some area where they just are making it illegal now. It's in Philadelphia. They just passed a city-wide ordinance that's going to make it illegal to pull people over for a lot of offenses. So they won't be able to pull you over. Is that a good idea? I don't really think so, because I believe in crime in a lot of ways. Have you ever heard that theory of it was noticed in public housing? Because public housing would get run down, people wouldn't take care of it. And what they noticed is that if they let a broken window go off,
Yeah.
and if you don't fix that broken window right away, then another one's going to happen, and another one's going to happen. The same thing with graffiti. If you allow a little bit of graffiti to take place, it's just going to keep going and going and going until the whole
Interesting.
thing's graffiti.
Yeah.
Not that graffiti can't be beautiful. I've seen
Right.
a lot of great artwork that way, but it's the same thing with this type of theory. Like, if you don't allow the police to do their jobs on the lowest level crimes, then you're going to have more crime. And you're going to have more higher crime, more violent crime, more robberies, more assaults, more carjackings, more everything. And Minneapolis is already hurting right now. So I don't think that they can afford it.
Yeah. I mean, I really don't understand why, when you're in the middle of a crisis, you would obliterate something and try to start from scratch rather than naming the problems and fixing the problems.
Well,
That
Ilhan
seems-
Omar and Attorney General Ellison, they have both come on board with supporting this question. They want to make these changes. And Congresswoman Ilhan Omar specifically said that the reason why there's so much crime in Minneapolis right now is because the Minneapolis Police Department has failed over the last years in
I
terms
did
of
see
building
that she said
trust.
that.
Whether that's true or not is open to debate, but that's the other side of the argument.
But how would removing one system, creating a new system, like, why would people inherently somehow trust this new system, and how is the new system going to be better? And if they have a great way to make this new system better, why not just make the current system better? I am all for reform. If you name the problem and reform the problem, I'm all for that. I really don't like how politics has become this, like, it's almost like the greatest good. This is myself making a generalization, but the greatest good is naming some very general, vague thing. And that's the greatest good. Yes, we want this. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. Why? Like, we're talking about policies which affect people. Name the policy, name what is good and bad about the policy, root out the bad, keep the good. Like, I don't think it needs to be so complicated. I certainly don't think it needs to be or should be vague. And to me, this seems very vague. Why not name a problem and come up with a solution is my
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it needs to be so complicated.
That's one shocking thing that I noticed just moving to Florida, to talk about our move to Florida again, is that I was so used to in the Twin Cities, like kind of not ignoring the traffic laws, but not really having that feeling like, oh, I better come to a complete stop
in Minnesota.
In the Twin Cities.
Mhm.
Otherwise, I might get pulled over like it used to be there.
Oh.
Or what's another example of even just going 35 into 30 or I just got the feeling over the last few years that I wasn't going to get pulled over. And I didn't do anything reckless or go out and just purposefully break laws. But one noticeable change moving here, especially when you're in downtown Naples, is there's police everywhere.
Yeah.
And they're
there are
always
police.
pulling people over.
Mhm.
And I was like, wow, this is actually how it used to be.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I don't like to get pulled over. Every time I drive, if I see a cop on the side of the road or if I think I'm getting pulled over, I literally feel like I'm having a panic attack every time.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is something to be said about enforcing low-level crime prevents additional crime on top of that.
I remember Jeremy Munson. He's a senator, representative.
He's
in
a House
Minnesota.
representative. Yep.
When Dante Wright was killed, he proposed did he propose legislation or just make a recommendation? But he made a recommendation saying, similar to what you were saying in other states, but this was just for one specific thing. Like, what if we no longer pulled people over for expired tabs? Because had Dante Wright not been pulled over because the car he was driving had expired tabs, the police officer would not have seen his past criminal record, wouldn't have made the horrible mistake of pulling out her gun instead of a taser. You know, like their entire encounter would have been prevented. And I think it's interesting. It's definitely, if I was the one making this decision, I would take a long time looking into this and looking at data because I think it's worth considering. I don't really know if people do need to be pulled over for an expired tab. And I thought the example that he gave, which I thought was interesting, is that none of us on our homes have a sign saying whether or not we're up to date on our property taxes. A police officer doesn't come to our home and just knock on the door just because we have a tab out there that says we're behind on our property taxes. And then when they come to the door, maybe they'll look up our name, or they would look up our name and be like, oh, you also in the past strangled someone, and, you know, all this stuff. So, hi, John. So, I love it.
So I wanted to go over this article here. Early
Broken window theory.
early voting. What did John
He
say?
brought up broken window theory, which you were mentioning.
Yep, I was
That's a
actually
great point.
talking about that earlier, John. The broken window theory and how
That's a great point.
that correlates to crime. Leonie, you want to go over this article here, WCCO? This
Early
is one of the
voting.
concerns we have with the elections taking place. There's been record numbers of early voting in Minneapolis and in Virginia. This is from WCCO, CBS.
First, a quick update on the governor race in Virginia. According to the New York Times, 43% of the votes are reported. Currently, Glenn Youngkin, the Republican, has 55.8%. Terry McAuliffe, the Democrat, has 43.6%.
Wow. Youngkin's still pulling ahead.
He is.
Hey,
Coming up
Kelsey.
on
So we don't think that we've been telling everybody who has logged in that, you know, this is the first time that we're live streaming. We don't know if this microphone is actually working. I think it's just the microphone in the computer, but you can probably hear the kids too. If this microphone were working, it's directional, but I think it's only the computer. Not sure.
Doesn't matter.
So what were we at with Virginia then? Youngkin's
So
pulling ahead.
Youngkin 55.8. Yep. Terry McAuliffe 43.5%.
And how much
That's
reporting?
44%.
Wow. Yeah, we were saying, John, that if Governor Tim Walz is watching what's happening in Virginia and what has been happening in Virginia, if I were Tim Walz, I'd be shaking in my boots right now in terms of his reelection prospects. Not saying he's not going to get reelected, but this isn't a good sign for him. And there's a couple good candidates that are planning to run against Tim Walz. I know Michelle Benson, state senator. She's at the very top of the list. There's the majority leader of the Senate. What's his name again? Paul Gazelka.
Yeah, Paul Gazelka.
So
And
he's
then
at the top.
Scott Jensen.
And then Dr. Scott Jensen, who used to be in the state Senate. He's running for governor. He's a family doctor, and
Max
so-
would love that. He's keeping the other kids occupied, so I won't bring him over right now. And there's another physician running too, who I heard speak when I went to the
Republican physician.
When I went to the anti-vaccine mandate protest at the Minnesota State Capitol. There was another Scott Jensen spoke, and then another physician too who's running. What was this article you were talking about?
Oh, this one about early voting. And whoops, did I lose it already? Here it is right here. So this is WCCO by Marielle Mose.
This week's election in Minneapolis is already one for the history books. Early voting is at record levels, and many residents say they were drawn to vote over the future of the Minneapolis Police Department. Question number 2 on the ballot, like we talked about, asks voters if they want to replace the department with a DPS, Department of Public Safety. Also on the ballot are questions on mayoral power and rent control.
The rent control we'll talk about later, but that's a big one too. That would put Minnesota at some of the strictest rent control measures in the country. Again, from WCCO.
Yep. One man said he wanted to see police reform, but still wanted to keep the Minneapolis Police Department intact. You put the people in power that went to school for this stuff, and you let them do their job, he said. Another man had strong feelings about the park board. The last park board folks were just not doing a good job, he said, so we're looking forward to some new people on the board. Another resident said he was well aware that the election in Minneapolis is being watched across the nation. I think what happens in cities reverberates throughout the entire country, he said. I know for a fact that people are watching what's happening in Minneapolis. Those heading to vote Tuesday will need to go to their specific polling place. For those who are voting absentee but haven't mailed the ballot in, it's too late to send it via mail. The ballot cannot be postmarked for Election Day. It will not count if it arrives after Election Day. So, yeah.
Interesting. I'm not a big fan of early voting. I think we should pretty much vote on one day only. And, if you need to vote absentee, you should have a good reason for it. There should be absentee voting, but it shouldn't be the norm. And I don't understand, too, why we have weeks and weeks and weeks of early voting. I think that just opens the door for lots of manipulations. And we should just go back to the old system. One day, everybody votes. It should be a national day off. If you can't vote that day, then you can vote absentee. But you need to have a listed reason why you're voting absentee, not just for any old reason. It should be a good reason.
Oh, good. Good. I'm glad the sound and clarity is good. Thank you.
Good. And we talked about how they used to vote. Remember why? Do you know why they have voting on Tuesday? Why we all vote on Tuesdays? There's actually a reason for this.
Sunday was church. Monday was travel.
Yep. Sunday was church. Monday was travel. So you could get to the polls by Tuesday. So people would travel literally hundreds of miles, wagon, horse, walking, whatever, to go and be able to vote on Tuesday. They would leave Monday.
Yeah.
And that's why we have our election days on Tuesdays. Pretty amazing,
So Virginia, their governor race, they're almost at half.
Wow.
Half reported. 49% reporting. Youngkin, the Republican, has 55.5%. Terry McAuliffe, the Democrat, has 43.8%.
Wow. Do you think they're going to call it soon?
I don't know. I was saying before when you were with the kids that I'm always.
Why do I have the
thrown off.
feeling if these numbers were reversed, they would already call it? They're not going to call it. They're not going to call it until they have every single vote counted, which may take days. I could see that happening. What do you think, Dia? So do we have anything coming out in New York City yet? There's also elections going on in New York City. There's a governor's election in New Jersey. We have Minneapolis. The mayor's up for New York City. I think there's only 2 candidates,
Yeah,
the Republican
I think so.
and the Democrat.
50% in Virginia.
And believe it or not, there was a Republican candidate for Minneapolis. His name is Laverne Turner. He's actually a great candidate. There's just not enough Republicans in Minneapolis. So I heard a lot of the Republicans, because they have ranked choice voting there. So they're voting for Fry. All the Republicans are voting for Fry. And then they're putting either Laverne Turner number 1, then Fry, or a lot of them are even putting Fry number 1, then Laverne Turner.
Then Laverne Turner.
And the theory behind it is that and I'm not prescribing to that theory nor endorsing it, but the reason for it is they say out of all the mayor candidates who have a chance to win in Minneapolis, Fry is the most reasonable. And if you remember when everything was going down in Minneapolis, I think it was the same day where Mayor Fry was wearing his mom jeans rolled up and
Where he
doing
was
the dancing and
Question.
when he got called out. And he stood up to him, though. He stood up to those protesters when they demanded that he tell the world that he wanted to see the Minneapolis police defunded. He said no. Remember, and then he did that walk of shame, and
Yeah.
it was a horrible political
Question.
moment for him.
Question here. Do you guys think Minnesota or Minneapolis voters actually realize what defund the Minneapolis police means? Specifically, seems like a charter change and a glorified name change.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. To me, I was saying earlier, I wish people would just name what needs to change and then change it and be more specific. To me, it seems so strange and vague. I'm all for reform if they're good reforms, but why just change the name? That's really all it's doing. And there's so much it doesn't explain. Like, would it be all of the same police officers currently in the Minneapolis Police Department suddenly becoming part of the Department of Safety? But it would be the same police officers. And if so, that's not really reform. Or would we put all of those police officers out of a job and start fresh with, I don't know who or what? It's a great question. And I just don't understand how little they're explaining.
And I think that's ultimately why it's going to fail.
And Dia blew a kiss to her Uncle John. I don't know if you saw.
I don't know. What do you think, John? Do you think it's going to fail? The question two, are they going? I think that the average voters in Minneapolis right now don't want to defund the police, and that's what they associate this measure with. I think your average Minneapolis family who lives in the city, who have kids, especially if you live in an area that's in higher crime rates, you want more police. It's pretty logical. And I think the surveys and the actions by many of the Minneapolis citizens have shown that. But you never know. I know that there's a lot of people coming in from out of town, and there's a lot of people voting in this election. So you just, and there's a lot of interest, and there's a lot of money behind it, and there's a lot of activism behind it. So you don't know exactly how this is all going to turn out. Yeah. And we're going to find out the first results of that here in about 40 minutes.
In Minneapolis.
Because what is it? It's 8:20 Eastern time, 7:20 Minneapolis. Their polls close at 8 o'clock. So we should be getting results out of Minneapolis soon.
Yeah, agreed. Crime is up already in Minneapolis and morale is down. Beautiful. I agree.
I'm still watching Little Mommy.
Oh, you're still watching Little Mommy. Okay.
So the
Uncle
Minneapolis
Johnny,
Council,
yeah.
the Minneapolis Council election are coming up too. Is it the entire council that's up for
that I did
re-election?
find out. We were going to figure that out. I'm not sure. Same with St. Paul. I don't know. Or no, St. Paul is just school board, right?
Mm-hmm.
Real quick about Virginia, the governor's race, 50% reporting, 55.6 for Glenn Youngkin, the Republican, 43.8% for Terry Mcauliffe, the Democrat. Are you looking up? Oh, yeah.
Yep.
About Minneapolis, if it's the whole city council or just some.
So Minneapolis, this is from Fox 9. You want to read it?
Yeah. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey is running for a second. Is it Fry? Jacob Fry is running for a second term. He faces 16 challengers in this year's election. Fry's leadership has come under scrutiny following the unrest over the murder of George Floyd in May 2020. He clashed with the city council over how best to reform the MPD in the wake of Floyd's death. Fry has said he opposes the policing ballot question, which would eliminate the police department from the city's charter and replace it with a public safety agency. Fry, who's 40, was first elected mayor in 2017. Prior to serving as mayor, he represented Ward 3 on the city council. Fry's top challengers are Sheila Nezhad and Kate Newth. I don't think you need to read all of that. Community organizer. Oh, one of his opponents, she is a community organizer who co-authored the Policing Charter Amendment petition. And then the other challenger is a business owner and former state rep. Both have said they would vote yes on question 2. Minneapolis uses ranked choice voting, as Tony was saying earlier. With ranked choice voting, voters can choose to rank up to 3 candidates for all offices on the ballot, including mayor.
If your first choice is eliminated during vote tabulation, your second choice candidate gets your vote. If that candidate's later eliminated, your third choice gets your vote. If one candidate gets more than 50% of the vote in the first round, the counting stops and that candidate is declared the winner.
So what are your thoughts? What are you guys' thoughts on ranked choice voting? Yay or nay? Lee, do you have an opinion
I don't know.
on
My
it?
laugh was about the comment about Kendi taking down his tweet. I saw that too.
Yep.
Crazy. I don't know about ranked choice voting.
I think
love
it's
to learn
too
from others.
complicated. I don't think it's a
The
good
attorney
idea.
says nay.
Yep.
I'll go with that.
Not a good idea. It's too complicated. Nobody knows exactly how it works.
Yeah.
I think maybe it would work great for determining the actual candidates in the general election. So I'm not against it in primary.
Sure.
So if it's a primary situation and you're voting within a party and doing it ranked choice within a party, maybe not a bad idea. But I think for a general election, it just opens the door for shenanigans because you get candidates where like they play games and their campaigns play games against each other.
Yeah.
Don't vote for this person or vote for this person second, vote for this person first. And nobody really understands the math behind it.
Yeah.
So I think it just makes it easier to manipulate it.
The people who are huge proponents of ranked choice voting, what's their reason? If there has to be some.
That the main reason why it was sold, and this is why a lot of people got on board, is they said it made it easier for third-party candidates and independent candidates to have a chance to win.
Okay.
And that chance to win comes from people being able to vote for people down ballot. So if I get enough second and third votes, not first, I could potentially win. I don't know exactly how that math plays out, but that's the main argument for it.
Sure.
Keep talking, Dave.
I wonder if it has at all made a difference in allowing third parties. Do you think that we'll have good candidates in midterms in 2024? You should run. You can be one. I don't know. In Minnesota? I hope so. It's a hard place. Oh, good. Stay over there, okay, sweetie? Stay over by your brother. You're showing them your brush. Daddy's gonna get you some popcorn. 53% reporting in Virginia. Glenn Youngkin is up. Can you hear me, Tone? 55.7%. Terry Mcauliffe has 43.6%. Almost 1,700,000. 53% reporting in Virginia.
Oh, wow. We just made some popcorn. So he's pulling out even more.
He is, yep.
Wow.
It's a wider gap, 55.7.
And I wonder how much of this is
43.6.
actually a referendum on the Republican Party or how much of it is an anti-democratic vote because of the over responses to COVID and to the school board and things like critical race theory. Especially in Virginia, a lot of those parents were becoming awakened
Well, that's
to
why I was asking
what's going on.
you.
They were protesting left and right.
That's why I was asking you. I mean, you seem to want Youngkin to win instead of Mcauliffe, and just curious if it's because you. Like,
And that was my third point. Is it just a referendum against Mcauliffe?
Yep.
Because he
agreed,
comes
yeah.
off as a greasy used car salesman, in my opinion. When I saw him on the Sunday talk show a couple days ago, and he's just saying dog whistle this and dog race whistle this and a dog whistle to racism.
I'm so unimpressed by people who don't look at the actual issues and discuss them and instead just
It's because
just
it
gaslight
works.
and make
It's a lot easier
generalization.
just to call everything racist and to blame your opponents on being racist than it is to actually debate the substantive facts.
Yeah. Kelsey, it's a good question. I don't want DeSantis to leave Florida.
Yeah.
How selfish is that?
You're probably a minority in that opinion,
Yeah.
but I definitely am in the same boat. Like I want DeSantis to stay here in Florida and protect the people here from the overreach that so many other states have occurred.
And it's not really just selfish. I think there's something, I mean, it's one thing I love about the fact that we're a republic. I think there's good in seeing how different states handle similar situations and which policies are actually best for people. And
So I do worry if Florida isn't.
And people have brought up the point too with DeSantis is he might not. He's a great governor, extremely smart guy. He's done a lot, but it may be too early for him to jump on the big stage. And I think too many politicians, they make the mistake of jumping up too fast,
And then they're just off the scene.
and then they
forever.
get their name trashed, especially when they run for the president, because it's at such a high level, and you have so much media going out against you that if you're not a finely tuned public relations person and you know how to, you have teams that can fend off the press attacks, you'll get so intimidated and so trashed, and your family will get so scared that you'll never want to run again.
Yeah.
And you could name people where this has happened, and they might not be people who you like, but even Governor Pawlenty, when he ran for president and he attacked Michelle Bachmann at the time in Iowa at the Iowa debate,
Yeah.
he was done. And his kind of public approval ratings went bottomed out too.
I agree. It's a referendum against identity politics. That's sort of how I feel when I vote. I don't think identity politics are helpful if we're not identifying issues and problems and identifying what works and doesn't. I mean, yeah, I don't know who should run for president in 2024. We need a new.
I will say,
Amazing.
if there was somebody like Trump who was as strong as Trump, who could stand up to the left and be as tough as he is and stand up to the media, like I would want that person, but I don't know who can do it.
Yeah.
Because I think that, President Trump, the former president, he's at the top of the polls in the Republican Party, but we can't forget how crazy he makes certain people.
Yeah.
And I think there's
So
a
I think
there's
he's
a
right. It's not
substantial
just for the
portion of the
country.
population that's like, they don't want that craziness again ever.
Mhm.
And I can somewhat understand that in a way.
Mhm.
But at the same time, if you're just willing to ignore or not want to go through what it would take, then what's our chances of really ever
winning.
getting rid of this dysfunctional power that's trying to rule every aspect of our lives?
Mhm.
Like, how do we do it?
Which leads to John's next
Are we just
question. How
gonna
do we
succumb
overcome
to
big
it?
media? I don't know. Speaking reality, I think makes a difference. The more people believe that, I mean, there are so many rabbit holes you can go down, but the more people believe only what the media says in the absence of evidence and reality, I think the more divided people become and the more power media has. So,
I mean, there's a chance we could be seeing the end of the big tech empires.
think so?
Facebook's influence may dwindle instead of increase. Same with Google and YouTube. Like, they may be losing power versus actually accumulating it. There's a chance. And by having competing media structures, especially online, that can compete with Google, with YouTube, with Twitter, is potentially one of the answers. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but we're going to pay attention. And I think that that's the other big hope that we have, is that enough people are going to be paying attention to what's going on with these elections. You've seen it since 2020. There's been an increased focus on every election that's taken place since November 2020's general election. And people are starting to see these patterns. And one can only hope that if we keep an incredible focus on our elections, on the way we vote, on our procedures, on the processes and checks and balances that we have to count the vote, one can only hope and pray that we're going to get a more honest voting system, because they're not going to be able to get away with a lot of the shenanigans of the past. And maybe that's partially what we're seeing in Virginia right now. But again, we're not going to really fully know what's driving these results in Virginia until they're all tallied up and until a winner is declared. And my guess is that we're not going to have a winner declared in this race tonight. We could, but my thought is, unless it's if Youngkin remains in the lead, I have a feeling we're not going to see a winner declared by the mainstream media until every last vote is counted. Could be wrong, but we'll have to see. Lee, let's go over these results.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at what's happening in Virginia again. We have 28 minutes until Minneapolis opens.
55% reported in Virginia in the governor's race. Youngkin, the Republican, is up at 55.8%, and
Ooh,
Mcauliffe has
wow.
43.5%.
Wow, that's a 200,000 vote difference between Youngkin and Terry McAuliffe right now. That's pretty amazing. Governor Tim Walz is probably shaking in his boots right now. I would
so?
be. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Especially he's got some good competition. You know, Michelle Benson, she could win. Maybe she could win. I think she's probably the top one in my opinion.
Awesome.
Although the other two are going to be
Three.
strong competitors too. 2 and 3. So, what do we got till Minneapolis opens?
27 minutes.
I'm
they close.
really anticipating and anxious about what's going to happen in Minneapolis.
Yeah, I am too.
Especially just being from there,
Yeah.
moving from the Twin Cities, moving from Minnesota to Florida. Like our family and our loved ones are still in Minnesota, so we have a lot of strong ties and emotions to that area. And again, I mean, you look at it's the same story as in Virginia. What's happened over the last couple of years with COVID, with the COVID restrictions, the mandates, the politicization of it. It's made a lot of people think twice about how they vote. It's made a lot of people think twice about where they live. It's one of the main reasons why we're in Florida now. If 2020 hadn't happened, we wouldn't be in Florida right now.
Probably not.
But it's great here. In Naples especially, it's a beautiful area. We're going to try to recruit and tempt friends and family and people that we know to move down here. It's about 85 degrees right now. Beautiful. In the morning, it's like 50, 60 degrees and it just feels good on your body too.
Yeah.
You know?
60% reported in Virginia. Youngkin, the Republican, has 54.9%. Mcauliffe has 44.4%. 60% reported.
Sounds like almost are going to declare a winner. Maybe we should see what maybe we should see what Fox News is saying about this. What's their headline?
They've already called it for Mcauliffe.
Have they?
Just kidding.
It surprised me. Youngkin ahead. Still.
Yeah, I wish you guys were in Florida right now.
And guess what? One of the great parts about Florida and Minnesota is number one, there's tons of people in Naples, especially from Minnesota. There's a lot of East Coasters too. Another great part is the flights. So where we are, Southwest Florida, the closest airport is Fort Myers. But you could drive pretty easily to Tampa. It's about an hour and a half.
Or Fort Lauderdale.
Hour to Miami, hour and a half to Fort Lauderdale. So you're going back to Minnesota in about a month. And how much was your flight?
200.
200. And you
200
had one for
taxes.
100. You had one for 100, but you missed it. You signed up too late. As she was signing up, either that or it was a bait and switch.
Yeah. But still, just over 200 with taxes and everything is not too bad round trip. Direct flights. No new reports yet in Virginia. So now it's just a waiting game for both Minneapolis and Virginia. And in New Jersey, 68-30 for Murphy. Thanks, John.
So
Not surprising.
I just floated this idea past John, friend of the show. But I'd like to have him come on as like a moderator in front of the show / guest.
Yeah.
But this is our first live stream that we're doing. So we're kind of learning the process a little bit. We decided to use this election as kind of a launching point for it, just to work out kinks. We didn't really market it at all. This is the first time we've ever put anything on this YouTube channel. So I think we have a couple subscribers right now. So thank you for anybody who did that. Thank you to the people who thumbs up or liked the video. It definitely helps to do that. But we plan to live stream probably a couple times a week. And also to make like little videos too that we're going to put on the YouTube channel. And, you know, we're going to follow YouTube's rules. We want to be able to live stream on YouTube. I don't want to get checks against us. There's a number of rules that you have to follow. And, you know, the fact of the matter is, and perhaps people may disagree with me, but we don't have free speech online. And maybe that's for some good reasons, or maybe it's not, but that's just the way that it is.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to change YouTube's policies. So we're just going to go along with it. That doesn't mean we're not going to report the truth or that we're not going to give our opinions, but we're just going to steer clear of topics that they don't want us to talk about. But we're going to expand our platforms in the future, and maybe we'll migrate somewhere else. But for now, this is where we're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a TikTok account, we have a Twitter, we have an Insta. And
I forgot we have a TikTok. I forgot we have TikTok.
I used to have TikTok, a different name, and I
They
made a
removed
video.
his account.
I made a video that hit 2 million views.
Yep.
And they
No
removed
warning.
my account permanently. No warning, no nothing. So that was kind of a learning lesson for me in a way, because I got a ton of subscribers, had a very successful video, and then boom, it's gone. And what a deflating feeling that is. So we want to build an audience through the YouTube live stream platform.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're just going to do it consistently, but we're going to need help. We're going to need people to help us build it, people to help us share it, people to come on and comment and do all those things. But we'll talk to John more about it offline, just some of the commitments and business part of it and all that as well. So, but the other thing we're doing here in Florida is I'm in the process of getting my real estate license. I'm about a third of the way through becoming Florida real estate licensed. Leona is actually going through the process too. So she's going to be a Florida licensed agent, not a nurse, not an ICU nurse, but
I'll still be a nurse.
but we're going to build a team in Naples here, but also nationwide, because through EXP, which is the realty brokerage that we're with, it's an international real estate brokerage, cloud-based, but we're able to build a team throughout the world. So whoever we bring onto the team, we're going to be able to mentor and hopefully provide some leads for and help them to become successful after you. Yeah. But 63 hours is what the class takes in Florida to get initially licensed. And it takes a while. So far, so good. But we're moving forward with that. So can we get some updates from Virginia? I'm eagerly awaiting this.
I am too.
I can't believe how much of a route it is so far. I'm just waiting for the line to go beep.
I am too. Nothing new yet. Still 60% reported.
Maybe an announced glitch or delay in the counting. We'll just see.
Maybe it's happening now because it's been 60% reported for a while.
Is it really?
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep our eye on that. They know. That's the thing, though. Like what I was saying earlier, the one good thing to come out of this last couple of years is people are watching things like a hawk.
Yeah.
With the elections, with the mandates, with some of the liberty infringements, and people. A lot of people who would normally not pay attention are. Mm-hmm. And that's who we want to reach out with this show too, are people who maybe haven't always been politically active. Maybe they aren't hardcore party people, and really neither are we, but people who have just been independent or in the middle, people who are concerned, people who want to become a little more aware of what's going on, and in specific with the elections. And because really, if we have any hope as a country,
1.2 million for Youngkin.
We're going to, our hope is in these elections and election integrity.
Mm-hmm.
If we're able to, because really that's where the public debates need to occur, and where they're settled is at the election booth, not the battlefield, or not on Facebook, not social media, Twitter, or some radio station. It's actually the vote.
Yeah.
And that's the way that was supposed to be meant to be. To prevent civil wars, to prevent people from fighting each other, to settle public scores, to determine a future for the collective, for all of us. And traditionally, that's been done in America by electing people who preserve and protect the Constitution and protect our rights that are guaranteed under. And that's one interesting thing that I've noticed from COVID in the outbreak and the pandemic is all of a sudden a lot of people, Americans, are saying, your rights don't matter anymore. Like you care about your individual rights during the time of a pandemic, so that pretty eye-opening in a lot of ways, because the answer for me is clearly yes, I do. But then I'm made to feel like I'm selfish, or that I don't care because I care about our individual rights. It's not just my rights, but that's kind of what you have to first stand up and protect, is your own rights. And that affects your family and your family's rights and their existence and their future and their right to have the same sort of opportunities that we had growing up, that were passed from our parents, from their grandparents, and so on and so forth. And you're seeing that shift now where people are trying to say, well, it's not important anymore, or the Constitution is outdated, or freedom of speech doesn't really matter. If you believe in freedom of speech, you're just clinging on to like the old racist white ways of America. And to me, that's a very dangerous philosophy, but you see it in our political leaders too. How many political leaders and people have you seen that have mocked freedom? Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, for who else?
Our president.
Our president. Yeah. I've had friends and family members.
Yeah.
I've had people tell me we're not free. And maybe there's some truth to that. Maybe we have let our freedoms go over the last few decades, and now is the time to try to take it back in a peaceful way.
Yeah.
It starts with these elections here. That's why we started here on election night.
Yeah.
So 16 minutes till the Minneapolis polls close. We should be getting results pretty quickly after that.
This is still about the same. John put in 1.2 million for Youngkin, 860,000 or 834,000 for Mcauliffe. Here I have, they're recalculating. We'll see. 62% reported, so it finally went up. 55% for Youngkin, 44.4% for Mcauliffe. And that's 62% reporting. Do you think patriotism is dying or will die with the youth of today?
They're trying to do it.
Kill it?
Well, I don't know by they, I mean that generally speaking, but yeah, I think that there's an active effort to make our youth not patriotic. Do I think it's dying? It's dying, but it's also in revival. It just kind of depends on who you ask. I feel more patriotic than ever. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I've certainly thought more about like the origins of freedom and why it matters and what it means. And I think that I believe we were created by a God who is all powerful and still gave each of us freedom to choose him or to not, or even to believe in him or not. So I can't come up with a world where it would make sense for government to give humans less freedom than our own creator gives us. And the other reason why I think freedom is essential always is I just don't see an example of any country or society or any time in history where removing the right to free speech or removing the right to bodily autonomy or removing the right to worship, which doesn't just mean you can have whatever thoughts you want in your head, but you can actually worship in the way that, whether it means that you're in a mosque or in a church, like freedom of religion means the freedom to practice those things. And I love that about our country, at least in theory, that every single person has that freedom to practice or to not practice. So yeah, maybe patriotism is a word for it. I guess I have more gratitude and I have more, gratitude for freedom than I had before. Strong men create good times create weak men create hard times create strong men. I do think that's true, sadly. Who is that? Who said that? I know I've seen that recently. It's sad. I think it's true, and I think it's kind of what, sadly, a lot of our kids will go through.
So did you see the Colin Kaepernick story that just came out? So this is from CBS News. Kaepernick, he compares the treatment of players at the NFL Combine to slavery.
What's the NFL Combine?
He said it's combined. It combines to slavery. He's saying that it's equivalent to slavery. So you want to read this? This is by Christopher Brito with CBS News.
Free agent NFL quarterback and activist Colin Kaepernick compared the treatment of players at the NFL Combine to slavery. The comparison was made in the coming-of-age Netflix series following Kaepernick's high school years called Colin in Black and White. This premiered this last Friday. Speaking in the first episode, Kaepernick described how pro hopefuls are treated at the NFL Combine, a 4-day showcase where many prospects undergo physical and mental tests in front of football team coaches, executives, owners, and scouts. Coaches will tell you they're looking for warriors, killers, beasts, he said. They say they want you to be an animal out there, and you want to give them that. What they don't want you to understand is what's being established is a power dynamic. Before they put you on the field, teams poke, prod, and examine you, searching for any defects that might affect your performance. No boundary respected, no dignity left intact, he added as scenes from a slavery auction play out. Activities at the annual event can include weightlifting, sprints, medical checks, and reportedly, quote-unquote, inappropriate questions, end quote, during in-person interviews. NFL teams also conduct background checks and interviews to gauge players' personality traits and Wonderlic tests to determine their intelligence level before deciding whether to commit millions of dollars. Kaepernick received some heat for the slavery comparison as critics pointed out that the NFL Combine is how teams can evaluate talent and is one step for many players en route to becoming millionaires. Utah Representative Burgess Owens, a former NFL safety who played for the Jets and Raiders, criticized Kaepernick on Twitter for comparing, quote, the evil endured by so many of our ancestors to a bunch of millionaires who chose to play game, end quote. It goes
I saw the video.
You did.
It's pretty amazing. And we're going to learn as we move forward to, what we can put and broadcast on the screen, because the video would be something great to show people. But there's imagery of, and it was redone, obviously, but from the slave trade. So people standing up on pedestals, and they would look at them and examine them, and they'd look at the muscles, and he's comparing that to this. Somebody made the point, though, and I think it's a fairly good one. Wasn't Kaepernick trying to get back into the NFL?
Recently?
Well, last year, and he's done special tryouts. He's done everything that he possibly could to get back into the NFL. And for whatever reasons, he hasn't gotten his second string quarterback position back yet. Yeah. And I don't know if he's directly said it. He thinks he's blackballed from the NFL. His critics say he's just not good enough. I don't watch football too much. I love the sport of football I played, but I don't watch the NFL. So I guess I don't know enough about it. But it's a pretty radical story regardless, because nobody's being forced to play football. And these people make more money. Yeah. If you think that demeaning somebody to determine who's going to be the top athlete is somehow less humane than somebody working as a garbage truck driver, warehouse worker, you name the position where they're getting paid significantly less. It's just hard to grasp, I think, for most people.
I wonder, it
probably is going to sell a lot of Netflix streams, though. People are going to want to watch it. And I'm sure if we had Netflix, I think I'd want to show you. And I think he's going to get a lot of streams just for that part, too.
Probably.
It's shocking. The typical shock story.
Well, at some point, comparing an atrocity like slavery to something else is disrespectful to enslaved people at some point, if you're comparing something that's not slavery. But if he's trying to get to a deeper level of how we look at the human body and at other people, then you would have to look at modeling and any job where you have to look a certain way to have the job, plenty of retail jobs, being a bartender at certain places. Are we going to start looking at all of those things as being completely inappropriate because the way that you look matters? Because it would be a really, really weird sport if your athleticism somehow didn't matter. That doesn't really make any sense. So I don't know. Again, I think definitions matter. I really don't think this is the same as enslaving humans, which is one of the greatest abominations you could commit towards someone. So comparing that to this is...
Yeah, and absolutely Kaepernick has the right to his free
Yeah.
speech.
Yeah.
He absolutely does. And he has the right to commerce to try to make money from it
Yeah,
too. And
he
I'm
does.
sure that's what a big factor of this is. I mean, Nike used him as a spokesperson.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Nike
Yep,
had a
agreed.
social justice angle, but they also wanted to sell tennis shoes.
Mhm.
I think that the shoe that he represented that company the way that they wanted him to do it. And
Yeah.
more power to him for that.
Mm-hmm.
But the one area where I do sort of disagree, though, in a way, is we've already said you don't necessarily have the right to free speech online. You can't say whatever you want on Facebook or YouTube or tweet whatever you want. There's more limitations to your online speech than there is in the public sphere. There's the famous example of you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, right? That's restricted free speech. But
Yeah.
there's really not a whole, like, incitement is illegal. You can't incite others to violence. You can't use your speech to put people in physical and immediate danger.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, you can pretty much say whatever you want,
Yeah.
according to past Supreme Court rulings and the actual text of the First Amendment in regards to free speech. Now, online, you can't. There's more restrictions.
Sure.
You can't say certain things about certain current events or about mandates or about the shot or any of those types of things. They highly restrict that, and we've come to accept that in a way. Similarly, people have said, oh, well, these athletes, if you're in the NFL, they have a right to free speech too. But isn't the established precedent that we don't have free speech at the workplace? You can't say whatever you want. You can get fired for having a political stance or for saying something controversial.
I for sure could have been fired if I posted something inappropriate about a patient. By inappropriate, I mean like sharing protected information about another human being as a nurse.
How long would a low-level NFL player make it if he started talking bad about BLM? Or if he made an anti-BLM thing that he wanted to wear in his uniform, like, he wouldn't be allowed to. So the argument that these athletes have the right to free speech, it's not necessarily true. They don't. It's only speech that the corporation or the NFL or that team condone.
Yeah.
They're allowed to do. If they don't condone it, you're not necessarily really allowed to do it.
Want an update on Virginia?
Yep.
64% reported. Youngkin has 55%.
Wow.
Mcauliffe has 44%.
Wow.
John said the adage about fire in the crowded theater is wrong. That you can say that. You can scream fire in a crowded room. I did see that Merriam-Webster changed the definition of vaccine. At one point, I looked at exactly what it was. They changed it from something that prevents infection to something that prevents, I don't know, severe illness from the infection or something like that. Basically, to match what these current ones do. Interesting, yeah. So you can scream fire in a crowded room, crowded theater, even if there's no fire. I assume that that's the context we're talking about.
You can't incite others to violence, though, directly. Maybe you can, but I don't think that you can. Guys, go over there, Dee. Come here, Cruz. You want to say hi?
Hi.
Are you paying attention to the elections? Or are you watching your show?
Watching the movie.
Why don't you tell everybody how trick-or-treating in Florida was?
Good.
What about it?
We got a lot of candy.
Yeah. Was that good?
Yeah.
And how about, are you glad we moved to Florida?
Yeah.
What's your favorite part so far?
Swimming and trick-or-treating.
Swimming and trick-or-treating?
Yeah.
What do you like better, guys? Swimming in the ocean or swimming in the swimming pool?
Ocean.
Why?
Has the wave.
The waves. All right, go back there.
Okay.
So yeah, we've been meeting people in Florida. We've been doing a lot of, when I'm not getting my license all prepared, we've done some stuff where we just walked up and down the street and just seen if people were out and about. We've met people that way. We've already gone to some events at Ave Maria, which is a community buy. They always have like stuff for the kids, but that's one thing that Leona and I both have been doing very aggressively, is just trying to meet people. just going out to everybody that we can and to try to meet them, especially if we think that they might have kids, our kids' ages, because we know that that's going to be crucial to being able to move here successfully and to be happy, is to meet lots of people and to have our kids hanging out with friends, because it's crucial to their happiness and crucial to our happiness. And it's something that we're taking very seriously, right, Lee? So we're going to go back to Virginia. I can't believe that they haven't called it yet. Anyone think that they're going to call this race soon? Let's see here. Let's see what CNN has reported for them. We're looking at Virginia again. Okay, so the interesting part is, why does CNN say tight race for Virginia governor? That's their headline, which is kind of tight. It's 56.6% to 44.7%. That's not that tight. That's a lot of points, and it's over 200,000 vote difference at this point. So unless they know something that we don't know, or we don't know yet if they've counted those absentee ballots yet, that's something that we're not sure of, but certainly doesn't seem that close. And Minneapolis, we have Minneapolis here, and Leona's putting the kids to bed. It's about 9:00 our time. That's one thing she wanted for sure. Lee, before you go, can you get the battery or this thing plugged in?
Yes.
All right, so go back to WCCO. Close this up here. Looks like nothing's in yet for Minneapolis. It's 9:00, so the Minneapolis results should be coming back anytime soon. Another fascinating election going on there. People are going to be anxiously awaiting to see who wins the mayor's race in Minneapolis. I personally have predicted that Fry is going to easily win re-election. I think most Republicans are voting for him, either one or two. Not that there's a lot of Republicans in Minneapolis, but I think that enough of them are going to support Fry in their first or their second ranked choice for vote, that's going to send them over the top. It's going to give him the extra push that he needs. Because the other people, and I don't know who he's running against exactly, but except for Fry and Laverne Turner, Laverne is the Republican, except for those two, I think the rest of the candidates for mayors are pretty far to the left. Just short of crazy, far to the left, if not exceeding crazy in many circumstances. So I think that we're going to see the dismantle the Minneapolis police measure go down. I don't think that it's going to succeed. I think that Minneapolis has had so much crime in the last couple of years that people aren't going to, they're associating this measure with defunding the police. So they're not going to go for it. Too many families have been affected by crime. I know a few people that I could name personally who have gotten either injured or killed from stray bullets. One of them was a Guadalupana, a senior old woman who lives in Minneapolis, who's a Guadalupana at Our Lady of Guadalupe. She was out mowing her lawn, 72 years old, middle of the day, mowing her lawn. My grandpa knew her. A stray bullet came, boom, and it hit her right in the head and killed her instantly. We know people who have been carjacked. We know people who have been assaulted. We know people who have gotten multiple cars stolen. People don't like crime. When it gets too insane, people vote for law and order. It's a pendulum. It swings back and forth. And that's why I think this ballot measure is ultimately going to fail. The other reason why I think it's going to fail is because the DFL, they don't want it to pass. They have no benefit from it passing. In fact, they stand to lose a lot in Minnesota if this passes and the crime in Minneapolis continues to spiral downward. And it may spiral downward no matter what happens with this referendum. But if they pass it and dismantle the Minneapolis police and the crime continues to go downwards in Minneapolis, the DFL is going to pay for it. There's no question about it. And it's going to have negative implications for them in their elections. So let's see here. Where are we now? Let's see if any of these results have come in. I'm going to switch over from WCCO to KSTP. Honey, can you keep them down? So voter turnout rises to roughly 45% in Minneapolis. Still no results yet coming in from the election in Minneapolis. Let's see what it says about this voter turnout, though. So this is KSDP, Rebecca Omastiak, and it says Minneapolis saw a high voter turnout on Election Day Tuesday. Minneapolis City Clerk Casey Carl said that as of 5 p.m., about 115,000 voters had submitted their ballot, according to responses from roughly 85% of the 134 city precincts. Carl noted the total was not complete. Carl said the number equates to roughly 45% turnout at the polls through 5 o'clock p.m. The highest turnout has been for an odd-year election since the 1970s is just over 46%. So it looks like they're just on the verge of beating that 1970s record. It's a quote. It says, "I think competitive races draw turnout. Significant ballot questions that are, in their nature, potentially controversial drive turnout, and our ballot reflects that. So I think Minneapolis voters are turning out to respond to these opportunities," Carl said. So the polls are open till 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time. We're at 8:04 Central Time, 9:04 Eastern Time. So we should be getting results from Minneapolis soon. Let's see where we are with Virginia, if there's been any updates with that. I'm about to ditch CNN, though, and to go somewhere else. Still says tight race for Virginia governor. And the results... Youngkin, 54.6. Mcauliffe, 44.7. 63% of the precincts voted or recorded so far as of 9:03 p.m. Eastern Time. So it's been stuck at the 63% level or just north of 60% now for quite some time. There could be a lot of reasons for that. Maybe some of the greater Virginia counties take a little bit longer to report. I'm not sure. I'm not watching any other streaming services right now, so I guess I don't know. And see if we have any Minneapolis results coming here. Here's a report. Minneapolis Police Department reports 3 carjackings, 3 more attempts reported in just over 90 minutes Monday. So this is KSTP. Police in Minneapolis say 6 carjacking attempts, 3 of which resulted in stolen vehicles, reported in just over 90 minutes Monday night. As of last week, carjackings were up 38% this year in Minneapolis, according to the city's Public Health and Safety Committee. That's before 6 more were reported in a span of 5 hours Friday night, and a total of 16 carjackings over the weekend. Monday night's carjackings were reported in relatively close proximity to one another. 2 attempts, one of which was successful, were in the Tangletown neighborhood. 2 carjackings were near West Lake Street and Hennepin Avenue. 1 robbery and attempted carjacking was near West 38th Street and Pillsbury Avenue. So that's the type of news I think that's going to turn a lot of people to vote no on question 2. Now, I don't know much about the rent control measure in Minneapolis. Let's see if we can find anything about that, exactly what that says. I know some people who are landlords in Minneapolis. Let's read from NPR. So this is NPR News, John Collins, Minneapolis will vote on rent control this far. Here's what we know. You want to read that? This is about the rent control measure.
Yeah, I wanted to learn more about this. The ballot measure would give the city council power to craft rent control policies.
Great, so it just gives them power to do it. I don't know why they need to do it on the ballot, but
Yeah, Minneapolis voters will get the chance in November to decide if the Minneapolis City Council should have the authority to enact rent stabilization measures on privately owned residential properties. Policies differ across the country, but most have a few things in common. Most cities that have rent control policies set a cap on how much rents can be increased each year. Most of those increases are tied to inflation. Most rent control programs allow some way for landlords to exempt a property from rent control policies, either temporarily or permanently. There's typically a way for landlords to raise rents above the cap when a property is vacant. Some programs even allow properties to be exempted from rent control measures when a tenant's income hits a certain level. Most programs are administered by a rent control board, which usually sets the cap. Landlords can typically appeal to the board to increase rents higher than the cap. This change to the city's charter would not immediately enact rent control or stabilization in Minneapolis, but state law requires that voters approve any rent control measures. So that's why, because of state law. This change to the city charter would allow the Minneapolis City Council to legally craft rent control policies. As part of their 2020 budget, the Minneapolis City Council funded a study of rent stabilization programs that was done by the Center for Urban and Regional Affairs at the U of M. The study analyzes a number of models for rent control policies around the country and looks at how they might be applied in Minneapolis. There are about 200 municipalities and 2 states in the United States that currently have rent control policies, according to this report. The authors of that report distinguish between historical rent control measures in places like New York City, which included long-term ceilings on rents, and what they call rent stabilization, more moderate policies that are common around the country. The first batch of rent control policies were put into place during World War I, according to the report. Most of those regulations were taken off the books by the 50s, but inflation in the 70s led to the adoption of more moderate rent stabilization policies in big cities like Boston and San Francisco.
Again, this is NPR News.
It depends on what the city council decides. The question is what properties would be affected. It depends on what the city council decides. But many cities decide to exempt new constructions or owner-occupied homes like duplexes. The impact of any future policy could be pretty broad, though, because more than half of Minneapolis residents are renters. Does rent control work to keep prices down? The analysis that I mentioned, that they cited above, of 4 cities with rent control policies found that they have effectively kept rental costs below market level and moderated rent increases. But researchers disagree on the extent of the impact. Question: what happened to the other rent control ballot question? There were initially 2 ballot questions related to rent control. The other question, which would have allowed residents to gather signatures on a petition and put rent control policies directly before voters, was vetoed by Major Jacob Fry, who argued that policy shouldn't be made through referendum. Who supports the charter amendment? It was offered by City Council President Lisa Bender and council members Cam Gordon and Jeremiah Ellison. It's being pushed by Home to Stay Minneapolis, a coalition that includes faith-based and tenants groups like United Renters for Justice. They argue that rent control measures are necessary to keep rent increases modest, slow gentrification, and prevent people from being forced from their homes due to sharp rent increases. Is Jeremiah Ellison related to Attorney General Keith Ellison?
It's Keith Ellison's son.
It's his son? Okay.
Yep.
Other groups that support the amendment include Stay at Home Minneapolis, made up of a coalition of labor unions, worker advocates, religious groups, and activists. And in St. Paul, there's a group called Keep St. Paul Home, made of neighborhood groups from places like Frogtown, housing activists, and renters.
Interesting. Well, we experienced, there's something crazy going on with rent right now. Pretty
In
much
Florida.
there's a housing shortage.
Mhm.
There's a lot of different factors that are driving it. I'm not quite sure if rent control is the answer. I think we need to figure out ways to increase the supply of housing so that it's affordable and profitable for those who build it, and also stabilize lower rents because there's ample supply of housing for people to choose from. Moving to Florida, to try to find this house that we're in now, which is it's a nice house. We didn't buy, we just rented, but just to rent a place, we were competing. We had to get into a bidding war. We barely had a place to live. And luckily, we just kept bidding until we got this one because A, we were tired of it. B, if we didn't get this place, it would have been more expensive no matter what, because we would have had to rent an Airbnb or something like that for a couple of months until we found the place. And
A bidding war, and also I think just we were lucky or just really blessed because the owners happened to answer your phone call and didn't mean to.
Yeah.
So I think
I
that's
mean, we
part
just
of it
built
too.
rapport,
That they were,
there was
Yeah.
10 other interested parties. When I flew down here and drove here for the open house, there were already 5 cars in the parking lot in the first 5 minutes that the open house took place. And we made an offer basically on the spot. And we just wanted to make sure that the house was clean. There's no major deficiencies with it. And but what's driving the housing supply shortage? We're not building enough. The regulations and environmental considerations to build is putting a lot of the smaller builders to be hesitant towards building. You have these national corporations, housing corporations that are out there like BlackRock and Zillow and others that are buying up houses left and right. There's national rental agencies, so they're buying houses, they're fixing them up, and then they're renting them for top dollar in the most competitive major markets. And plus we have the baby boomers, that demographic, the retiring baby boomers, the aging baby, they're holding on to their houses. They're not selling. They're either passing it to their children, they're keeping it in the family, or they want to live there as long as possible. And then you have the emerging millennials, which is one of the largest sectors of first-time home buyers I think the market's ever seen. And so we really have a perfect storm of that's creating this housing shortage. And one of the results from the 2008 collapse was a lot of people got out of the market, a lot of people held onto their houses, and they started buying multiple houses. And with Airbnb and VRBO and all these other things, there's even more incentive for the private individual to own and hold on to their properties. Especially if you live in this area in Florida, you get closer to the ocean. You saw what we saw yesterday. Half of them are rentals, like vacation rentals. And I think that that's having an effect too. So do we have anything coming out of Minneapolis now?
So I'm looking to see. Let's see. Results were last updated at 8:10 p.m. 5 minutes ago
What are
in
you
the Twin
looking at?
Cities.
Nothing.
Just trying, nothing.
What about Virginia?
Virginia
Virginia.
gubernatorial race, 70% reported. Youngkin, the Republican, has 54.5%. Mcauliffe, the Democrat, 44.8%.
And how many total reported? 70 now?
70%.
Okay, so it's going up.
Yep.
They're getting there. They got to be coming somewhat close to wanting to declare a winner. But this is, if these are the numbers, if Youngkin wins 55 to 45, or Biden, the Democratic Party, Walz, Steve, like all these guys have got to be getting really nervous watching this. And we might be seeing history in the making. I don't know. I think I'm going to change up my shirt. One of our plans for the long term is we want to sell attire. So we're going to have a shirt of the week of the month, or a hat of the month, shirts, hats, t-shirts. So no, I'm not going to wear this shirt all the time. Does it look good on camera though?
I'm waiting for his answer.
Anything?
I want to hear about Minneapolis. What did that say? Voter turnout? Was that about?
That was something else.
Okay.
I read this article earlier. The turnout this odd election cycle in Minneapolis is rivaling the top turnout percentage ever in the history of Minneapolis voting in 9 years.
Wow.
It's only 46%. I thought it would be much higher.
Wow, that's impressive. 71% reported in the Virginia governor race. John said consistency is good. People like it. It's true. This will not be my consistent color. It looks like I'm just blending in.
You see this story?
Investigation
Read this
launched
one.
over teachers' use of the N-word at Minneapolis school.
Yep. This is Bring Me the News. Who's the reporter?
This is-
Adam, you're in. Can you read it?
What a name. Sorry. A teacher who allegedly repeated the N-word in front of her class after it had been scrawled by a student on a desk is under investigation. Minneapolis Public Schools confirmed that the teacher at Northeast Middle School has been placed on leave following the incident in an 8th grade classroom, which sparked a petition and a student walkout on Friday. In a Change.org petition seeking the firing of that teacher, a student who claims to have personally witnessed the incident says it began when a fellow student wrote the N-word on a table in class. About 10 minutes later, the teacher became frustrated with some student and said, "People should not be writing the N-word on the table." She said it with no hesitation. The students in the class were furious and went and got our principal. As soon as he walked in, she started crying to appear like the victim. She said, "I'm so sorry, Mr. Rowe," completely invalidating the Black student's feelings. The principal barely said anything to her. Then he pulled up an article about Kendrick Lamar stopping a white fan from saying the N-word. Students were upset and left the room. School principal Vernon Rowe said in a message to students that the incident occurred after students were defacing school property and the teacher, quote, read the slur out loud from student texts about it, end quote. Rowe said, quote, sharing that use of the word was unacceptable, end quote. Later, the Change.org account says the teacher in question told her next group of students that, quote, "My last class was a bit dramatic," end quote. The student also says that our principal is invalidating our feelings, by suggesting it was a learning moment, while other teachers continued telling us to keep the conversation within our group. A Minneapolis Public Schools spokesperson said that sharing that use of the word was unacceptable, adding that the teacher is on leave. In a memo sent to families forwarded to Bring Me the News, Superintendent Ed Graff said, "Students, staff, and families alike have felt the pain and trauma of one of our staff members reading a racial slur out loud from a student text during class. I join Principal Rowe in apologizing to the Northeast community for the use of a word that should never be used regardless of circumstances. We are a community that respects and values all members of our community and are taking steps to address the impact of this incident."
Wow. That's a shocking story in a way. The kids wrote this on the desk.
The kids wrote it, yeah.
And she said, "Don't write this on the desk." Don't.
Yeah.
And then they became upset by that.
She apparently said people should not be writing that word on the table. I mean, absolutely true. People should not be writing.
So 71% of the vote in for Virginia. Youngkin still has a 54 to 45% lead over Mcauliffe.
What's that from CNN?
Yeah. Shocking.
I want to see Minnesota results.
They got to be coming in.
Yeah, right?
Are you looking?
I can look here.
Nothing.
Nothing yet?
Nope. I'm surprised. Nothing yet.
I'm surprised too. I'm not even seeing like reports on it.
So let's talk about some other ideas and ground rules that we have for the show.
Yeah.
We need to get the live stream software so we can hook this microphone up, so we don't have to speak through the computer.
Sure.
We need to send out an email to our friends and our family who won't attack us, and ask them to subscribe, because we want to try to get as many subscribers as possible, because once you get to like 1,000 subscribers, then you get an extra level and it's easier for the search stuff.
Okay.
And then I think that we need to have a format for the shows, and a focus. But I think that starting out, the focus is going to be current events, issues that affect Christians and Catholics, the elections, the 2022 elections, which if this is any indication of what's coming in 2022, I think the Democrats are going to be in real big trouble. They're going to be in real big trouble. And there's good reason for that. Like, people have been waking up to a lot of this stuff that they've been trying to pull. Doesn't mean that COVID's not real. We all know COVID's real. We know it's a real virus. But the politicization of COVID, I think, is what is angering a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
The hypocrisy surrounding it. When they see people like Gavin Newsom was telling everyone they need to wear masks, and then he goes to the French Laundry and has a birthday party for himself in indoor dining, nobody wearing masks with the health officials of the California. Like, that's what gets people mad.
Or even just the videos over and over again of, I mean, there was one recently with, what's his name, from England and a bunch of other world leaders.
Who?
At the
Boris?
Yeah, Boris Johnson and a bunch of other leaders. And I have a burr from outside in my hair, one of the seeds. And they all have masks on. They're standing next to each other in a row for a picture. And as soon as the picture's done, like, they don't even step away from each other and take their masks off and start talking. I just don't understand. Like, how are people not like what's the why wear it for the picture? I don't know.
Well, then
And I'm not even. I think masks serve a purpose when used in the appropriate way, and the right mask at the right time. Yeah, Boris, thanks, John. I just don't understand. Like, how can we not see that and be like, yeah, these leaders are not providing data and evidence, and
And do you think we're going to see an end to Fauci? Because his reign is starting to get threatened too.
Is it though? People still love him so much and trust him so implicitly. The implicit trust I don't understand. And I don't say that with disrespect.
More and more people
You
are
think so?
questioning Fauci. Yes. But is it going to take him down? I don't know. I don't know about that. But there was this other story. Did you see Don Lemon? He got caught maskless on
Here in
vacation
Florida.
in Florida with his husband.
And the video, I mean, I heard a little bit of the video and it was sort of funny that someone was like, we love you in Florida or something. Because doesn't he talk about how Florida's
Oh, well, CNN constantly, just like everyone else in the mainstream media, when Florida's COVID numbers were high, everybody was just like last year, throwing Florida under the bus, calling Florida a bunch of knuckle-dragging Republicans who think COVID is a sham, and they're dying from it left and right. And they love to demonize Florida. And then lo and behold, there's Don Lemon with his husband in Florida without a mask on.
Or just the fact that then when Florida has the lowest cases, no one cares. So it should go both ways. If it's all the fault of Floridians and all the fault of DeSantis when Florida's numbers are relatively high, then it certainly should also be, to the credit of Floridians and to the credit of DeSantis when Florida's numbers are the lowest. Or maybe it's just the reality of life that this virus is here, unfortunately. I'm trying to find some results from Minnesota. That's what I am most interested in. I'm not seeing any yet. Excuse me. Let's look at Virginia again. Ooh, 74% reported in Virginia, 54% for Youngkin, 45% for Mcauliffe. It's about the same. Again, 74% reported, 54 to 45% going for Youngkin currently. Yes, so true. That was crazy with the literal fires behind them. Very true. Oh.
Nothing?
No, nothing from Minnesota. 74%
Unbelievable.
reported in Virginia.
Is Youngkin still up in Virginia?
Youngkin, yep, it's 54 to 45 going for Youngkin right now.
Okay. So what time is it? Central time.
Central
I feel
time,
like
it's
traditionally
8:30.
they have these results like this.
I know, I'm surprised.
Is it maybe
From
it's because it's
Minnesota.
an odd year? Maybe it's because it's just Minneapolis. Maybe it's the way
It's
that
St.
they're
Paul,
counting
too.
it. There's St. Paul elections as well. But yeah, I don't know.
Oh, really, John?
Let's see what.
Who's reporting that? The 80% of black voters for Mcauliffe?
Well, that's what Mcauliffe did the whole time, is he used the race card.
Uh,
That was his number one.
I don't know how these media places get these numbers. It's mind blowing to me. I'd love to work for, I mean, they would never hire me. I'd love to work for one of these organizations for one election to see some of the.
That was the other amazing thing.
Background
Going
of
back
it.
to the Colin Kaepernick story, one of the examples that he used was Steve Urkel. You know who Steve Urkel is?
Yeah.
Or Carlton. Remember Carlton?
For sure.
From
Family Matt.
Family Matters,
Matters.
And what was the Will Smith show? Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah.
But he said that those characters in particular are racist characters, and they're meant to create. And I'm subquoting him here, but they're designed for white people to like, because they're acting like white people. They're acting how we want them. By we, I mean white people. I don't really consider myself a white person, but in his generic form, what white people expect or want the black person to be, like a white person. You know, his example was Carlton not being able to dance, being really stiff, coming from a rich family.
Okay.
But I thought that was an interesting example that he used, because it shows maybe the demographic that Kaepernick's trying to target, because these are people we grew up with. By we, I mean our generation. So he's got a generation targeted, you know, that he's trying to get that message across to.
That's interesting. Martin Lawrence.
Did he go after him too?
No, who is Martin Lawrence though?
He was a comedian.
Oh, okay.
He's a comedian.
I'm clueless. So I don't know.
Minneapolis.
Still 74% recorded. 54 to 45.
I'm going to turn something on the TV so we can stream it.
Okay. Result. Oh, nope. 5 hours ago. Oh, and the color. Okay. This says Virginia governor's race seen as referendum on Biden's first year, but still too close to call.
Who said that?
Market Watch.
Is that an article?
Mm-hmm.
Read it.
On the watch list screen, in the navigation menu.
This was by the Associated Press. Can't find the author. Republican Glenn Youngkin vying to upset Democrat Terry McAuliffe.
YouTube on TV is loading. 4G favors the
Terry McAuliffe and Republican Glenn Youngkin were locked in a fierce battle for Virginia governor Tuesday night, the most closely watched contest in an off-year election that could prove a referendum on President Joe Biden's first year in office. The race was too early to call. The bruising campaign pitted McAuliffe, a prominent figure in Democratic politics and a former Virginia governor, against Youngkin, a political newcomer and former business executive. The two have spent months fighting about everything from Youngkin's ties to former President Donald Trump to abortion rights and culture war battles over schools. But voters saw the economy as the top issue, followed by the coronavirus pandemic, according to AP VoteCast, a survey of statewide voters. Some 34% of Virginia voters ranked the economy as their number one priority, compared to 17% saying COVID-19 and 14% choosing education. Those issues outranked healthcare, climate change, racism, and abortion in the survey. The final results, though, may ultimately be interpreted as an early judgment of Biden, who captured Virginia last year by a comfortable 10-point margin. The closeness of the governor's race indicated just how much his party's political fortunes have changed in a short period. The White House has been shaken in recent months by the chaotic withdrawal of U.S. forces from Afghanistan, a sometimes sluggish economic recovery amid the pandemic, and a legislative agenda at risk of stalling on Capitol Hill. A sometimes sluggish economy. Has the economy not been sluggish since? Anyways. A loss in a state that has trended towards Democrats for more than a decade would deepen the sense of alarm inside the party. We need to plug this in. I think we're going to win in Virginia, Biden said at a news conference in Scotland where he was attending an international climate summit. I don't believe and have not seen any evidence that whether or not I am doing well or poorly, whether or not I've got my agenda passed or not, is going to have any real impact on winning or losing. A ballot question. This also talks about Minneapolis. Again, this is published in the AP. A ballot question in Minneapolis could reshape policing in that city where the killing of George Floyd last year touched off sweeping demonstrations for racial justice across the nation. No other race received the level of attention of the Virginia governor's campaign. That's in part because such contests in many states have sometimes shown voter frustration with a party newly in power. Yes, we all know that. The swing. Hey, Paul. Paul's here.
Hey, Paul, how are you?
I did not listen to his news conference today.
We still don't have any results from Minneapolis. Whoa, here we go.
Fry, 44%. Sheila Nezhad, 19%. Kate Knuth, 18%. Knuth.
So, yeah, this is so far in line. That was my prediction. There's 71% reporting. So it looks like Fry is going to easily win. I could be wrong.
Question 2.
Should we replace the police department? Yes, 42%. No, 58%. 71% reporting. It's in line with what we predicted there, too. There's still 29% of the vote left, so it could change.
Yeah, it
but
could change.
the rent control, yes, 51%. No, 49%. Ooh, that's a close one. That's surprising. I think I would vote no to that. I think we need to do more to increase the supply of housing, give builders a green light to build more, and that'll automatically drop rents. It'll make housing more affordable. We have a crisis of supply right now. Wow. So it looks like Fry may be on his way to a victory. We'll see. But yeah, I kind of thought they would vote no because the Democratic Party, the DFL, does not want to be tied. I was saying this when you're inside. They don't want to be tied to dismantling police.
Yeah.
If the crime continues to get worse in Minneapolis, who's going to pay for it? The DFL.
Yeah.
So if they don't change the MPD, they keep it how it is. They don't have to take responsibility for anything that happens afterwards, even though they're fully responsible.
Yeah.
But it'll give them a political out.
Yeah, that's true.
So 58% no, yes, 42%. That's
yes.
still a lot of people.
Who voted yes?
Yeah.
To replace.
We'll see how that changes. And Mayor Fry, 44%. The next closest competitor is Sheila Nezhad, 19%. Wow. Historic. And then we got Youngkin.
And then Youngkin. So currently, according to the New York Times, 74% reported in the Virginia gubernatorial race. Youngkin at 54%, Terry Mcauliffe at 45% still.
Wow.
54 to 45, 74% reporting.
Wow. So yeah, we've done our live stream here now. We got 2 hours and 32 minutes of straight live stream.
Of waiting for election results.
Yes. But our future shows that we're going to do when we get everything more intact. And again, this is our first show. We thank anyone who's helped us to kind of help put this together a little bit. We just we need more subscribers and all that, but we just wanted to do it for one time just to get it online and to see some of the mechanisms because we set it up, but until we actually used it, we didn't really know.
Yeah.
We had to change computers at the last second because this computer wouldn't hook up to the camera and just those types of little things. And the other thing we're going to do is in our room, which is over there, we're actually in the process of setting up like a whole studio. So we're going to have a green screen behind us and we're going to have our professional camera. And we're going to have our recording system for the sound so that it all sounds clear. Because right now I think we're actually just recording out of the
laptop
microphone
speaker.
in the laptop. Yeah. Which is fine, but if there's any background noise, you get the directional mic and it works a lot better that way. So
And most nights will probably start a little later, so the kids are already
Yes,
in
and
bed.
we'll start later because we don't want to deal with the kids running around, even though it's probably still going to happen.
Yeah.
But our shows are probably going to be
will
an
still
hour.
happen.
They're not going to be 3 hours. They're going to be
No.
an hour, and we're going to write a lot more. We're going to have segments in each show, and we're going to have maybe a pile of 20 segments that we're going to have use maybe 4 or 5 or 6 of them per show, but consistent beats that we keep going back to.
Yeah.
But 2022, one of our goals is we want to reach out to voters who aren't very political. The new voters, the independents, the people who are being awakened, the people who are outraged about the changes in the educational system from COVID, the people who are outraged about mandates and a lot of the freedoms that have been trampled on. We need to have a tsunami of voters in 2022. And we need to help. We want to help people identify where these races are that are winnable, that we can gain some territory on. By we, I just mean people who want freedom, liberty, and the basic constitutional protections, and help to make these races, bring them into the awareness, help people raise money for them.
Quick update.
Uh-oh.
Mcauliffe is closing the gap a little bit. 76% reported in Virginia, according to the New York Times. Glenn Youngkin has 53.6%. Mcauliffe has 45.8%.
So what's the difference? What's the difference in the vote? Let me do the math here. Hold on, let me open my calculator. Okay, what's the numbers? Youngkin?
Youngkin has 1,331,535.
Okay. Minus.
Mcauliffe has 1,138,210.
So it's 193,325 votes with 76% reported.
Yep.
That's a pretty significant lead. But what we don't know is where those absentee ballots, have they counted those yet? Are those counted into the total? Are they waiting? What exactly is the status of those? And, hoping that some predictions that we saw from yesterday don't come true, where you see that famous line graph.
That famous line graph, which had never happened prior to 2020.
During the pause. Yeah, never happened.
The pause. Yes.
So what's this say now?
Paul and John and Kelsey, did you guys see the request for Elon Musk to end world hunger from the UN? This is what we first started talking about. So the UN World Food Program, WFP, said that Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos could end world hunger. If Elon Musk donated 2% of his wealth, and he said he would donate $6 billion, which I think is his stock in Tesla. Did you see that, Tom? And he tweeted, he said, if you can show me with transparency how $6 billion will end world hunger, I will do it. Interestingly, the UN raised $8.4 billion in 2020. So last year alone, yeah, his response is hilarious. And I don't want to make light of these things. This is where I think I don't want partisanship to divide this. Oh, they say this and that's so absurd. World hunger is starving.
We have such a cynical political dialogue, and it's so easy to get caught up in it.
It is
the snark and the cynicism.
Yeah, but I mean, hunger is very real. People starving is very real. People experiencing food insecurity is very real in our country and around the world. And I do think that as humans, we're called to be generous with what we have. But it's just so hard to not wonder, okay, why is that the UN solution? If they raised even more money than that last year, why didn't they solve it? I think we need to be a little bit more innovative than just telling the 2 wealthiest people in the world that they can somehow do this on their own when the UN also has so much power. The US has so much money and our federal government waste money on absurd things, which, like I said earlier, Rand Paul points out, and I'm so appreciative of that. Yeah, interesting.
Ellison is up. He's in the top spot, although his competitor Porter's not too far behind him.
Ellison's son, right?
Yep. He's in Ward 3. I'm trying to think. Andrew Johnson. We actually know Andrew Johnson. He's a city councilman in.
Oh, yeah.
I
Did you
forget
see his
which
name?
ward. No, not yet. I'm looking for it. He's running for re-election. Andrea Jenkins, 83%. Her
She's
competitor, not even close, obviously, 16%.
she's already been in, right?
Jason Chavez, 56%. Yusuf Haji is at 13, so that's
Yeah,
not
I
even
agree, John.
close.
Poverty is horrible, but the hypocrisy on just with the globalists who have so much power and so much
Ward
money,
10.
somehow not solving it and thinking it could magically be solved. I think it's going to take a
Who
lot
was
more
the,
innovation than just money.
Who was the Minneapolis council person who wanted to defund the police right in the wake of the George Floyd riots, and then she got her own private security? Spent like hundreds. There's
Oh, I
Andrew
remember
Johnson
that.
winning
Oh, there.
landslide.
Yes.
Yeah. Guess it's not a surprise. 65%. It's pretty solid.
Yeah.
I'm surprised a lot of these incumbents did as well as they did. It just kind of shows, the people in Minneapolis, they are okay with the way things are. Jacob Fry, 44% still. Next competitors at 19%. That's with 71% reporting.
Here's
The
question
police
2.
department, is it a little closer now, or is it still 58-42?
Remember, let me write it down because I want to know.
58% no to replacing the police department, 42% yes.
And that's 71% reporting.
Yeah, I think that's basically the
think
same
that's
as
the
what we
same,
saw.
actually,
It's not really
yeah.
moving much.
And then Virginia governor's race, 77% reported. Youngkin has 53.6. Mcauliffe has 45.7. 77%.
45.7.
45.7 to 53.
And just in case you needed to know, according to CNN, right next to these election results, shots can begin now after CDC signs off on COVID for kids ages 5 to 11. Would you mind reading that?
It's by Maggie Fox for CNN.
Maggie Fox, CNN.
The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Director, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, in case you didn't know that already, said Tuesday evening she was endorsing a recommendation to vaccinate children ages 5 to 11 against COVID-19. I'll do it. Clearing the way for immediate vaccination of the youngest age group yet in the U.S. CDC now expands vaccine recommendations to about 28 million children in the U.S. in this age group and allows providers to begin vaccinating them as soon as possible, the agency said in a statement. We know millions of parents are eager to get their children vaccinated, and with this decision, we now have recommended that about 28 million children receive a COVID-19 vaccine, Walensky said. As a mom, I encourage parents with questions to talk to their pediatrician, school nurse, or local pharmacist to learn more about the vaccine and the importance of getting their children vaccinated. Earlier Tuesday, CDC's independent vaccine advisors voted 14-0 in favor of the child-sized doses of vaccine for the younger kids. Members of CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices spent an unusually long time speaking in support of the vaccine before they voted. We have one more vaccine that saves lives of children, and that we should be very confident to deploy it to the maximum to do what it is meant to do without significant concerns of serious adverse effects, said Dr. Sarah Long, a professor of pediatrics at Drexel University College of Medicine in Philadelphia. As you've heard, we all have a lot of enthusiasm for this vaccine in this age group. Dr. Beth Bell, a clinical professor of global health at the University of Washington, said after the vote, but we also understand that parents have legitimate concerns and legitimate questions, and that our vote is a way of telling the American public that based on our expertise and the information that we have, we're all very enthusiastic. Bell added, we were all talking about how we're getting our kids and our grandkids vaccinated, but I think another point that we made to the American public is that we do understand that people have legitimate concerns and that they have lots of questions. We really encourage people to ask their providers, to visit the CDC website, to talk to their friends, their parents, and do what they need to do to feel comfortable with their decision, Bell added. President Joe Biden weighed in, calling the decision a turning point in the battle against the pandemic. It will allow parents to end months of anxious worrying about their kids and reduce the extent to which children spread the virus to others. It is a major step forward for our nation in our fight to defeat the virus, Biden said in a statement. Over the last several weeks, my administration has been working hard to be prepared for this moment. We are ready to act. We have already secured enough vaccine supply for every child in America, and over the past weekend, we began the process of packing and shipping out millions of pediatric vaccine doses. These doses, specially designed for these younger children, have started to arrive at thousands of locations across the country.
Okay, we have an alert. This just out. This is WUSA9.com.
Oh, gosh.
Authors, just by the website, it says no author given. WUSA9 looks like a CBS station. Fairfax County rescanning 20,000 ballots due to technical issue in Virginia. This was reported at 9:12 p.m. Eastern time. You know, what time is it right now? It says like an hour old, not even.
Not even.
30 minutes. I don't have any other context to this story. Let's
Good
see what
find,
else we
Don.
can
Thank
find. Here's Fox 5, Washington, D.C., Fairfax County, rescanning 20,000 ballots from early voting locations. Fairfax County is rescanning about 20,000 ballots from four of their early voting locations after an early issue scanning the electronic media or thumb drives. According to a spokesperson for Fairfax County Elections Department. Katie Barlow reported, Fairfax County is rescanning 20,000 ballots from four early voting locations. There was an issue scanning the electronic media, thumb drives, in parentheses, and they will be rescanned. These are all early in-person votes, not the same day. The results currently published are incomplete by 20,000. Okay. The rescanning comes on Election Day for Virginia, with the race for governor being closely watched across the state and the country. You better believe it. Fox 9 has learned these are all early in-person votes and not same-day votes. 5,000 votes have been officially rescanned. We don't know all the details of this, but we will continue to watch. What's the latest on Virginia?
80% reported, according to the New York Times. 53.2% for Youngkin, 46.1% for Mcauliffe.
We're going to look over to our friends in New York City, where you served there as an ICU nurse. We're going to see what's going on in the New York City elections. Can you find it on yours?
Sure.
I don't know why you don't have Google set as your default search
On my
engine.
computer,
Yeah.
I know. I used to.
Yahoo
Somehow
is
it
just
changed.
the worst
I don't know how it
search
changed.
engine there is. It's like
But I
you
agree.
can put in the most beautiful keywords and Yahoo
and
will
you'll
bring you
get
to something.
nothing.
Oh, Adams elected mayor. Uh-oh. Is that it? Yep. Eric Adams is the new mayor of New York City, Democrat, with 297,260 votes, or 70.5% of the total vote.
Wow.
Curtis Sliwa, the Republican, the guy who always wore the red beret, he's at 105,200 votes, or 25%. That's enough to give him the lead. And looking at this map here, in case you didn't know, the boroughs of New York City, the Bronx, Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens, those are all pretty blue. Queens being the least blue out of those ones. And then Staten Island, it's a solid red.
Wow.
Republican.
I never knew that.
Republicans live on Staten Island, it looks like.
Interesting.
But, yeah, so Eric Adams will be the next mayor of New York City. Bill de Blasio did all the dirty work for him in terms of the mandates and firings, and so he'll be inheriting that. They're painting a picture. We saw that report earlier.
We were listening earlier, yeah.
Things are great in New York
Oh.
City, and everyone's vaccinated there, and there's nothing to worry about the services or the fire department or the police department. I think it's smoke and mirrors, though, because they've shut down fire departments already, fire stations. I think at least a dozen, if not 24 fire stations. There's many ambulance drivers who are knocked out.
Crazy.
And we'll see. We'll see what happens in New York City.
Yeah.
But it's not the same city that it was 2 years ago. There's no doubt about it, at least in my opinion.
It was crazy to hear de Blasio say
Ooh, what's that mean
that's
now?
the third choice for the ranked choice voting.
Ranked choice voting is so complicated.
Question number 2, replace the police department in Minneapolis. 92% reporting, 43% voted yes to replace, 57% voted no. It's current. Again, 92% reporting. We should find St. Paul.
I have noticed, though, they have refrained from using the word glitch describing Fairfax County. I want to know a little more about why they're rescanning it, though. What exactly happens?
Mm-hmm.
If anyone has any inputs on that, we would be greatly appreciated.
Fry, 43%. Second place, 21%. Third, 18%. That's with 92% reporting.
This is an
Fry
article
winning
about
43%.
Fairfax County. So it's actually a Democratic stronghold of Fairfax County, not insurmountable for Republican Youngkin in Virginia race, says expert. So this is from 12 hours ago. So this is before the glitch. We'll just read what it says about Fairfax County.
This is by Carrie Pickett for the Washington Times. The most populous county in Virginia that went overwhelmingly for President Biden in 2020 may not be enough to stop Republican Glenn Youngkin's gubernatorial campaign, according to an election forecasting expert. Cook Political Report editor David Wasserman said in a tweet that, quote, Youngkin has an excellent chance to win with a coalition very different from the last time a Republican won statewide, which was in 2009. As we said earlier. He added, that year, Bob McDonnell won Fairfax County. Youngkin doesn't even need to hit 35% there to win tomorrow. In 2009, Republican Bob McDonnell won the governor's race as part of a GOP statewide sweep that included Bill Bolling winning lieutenant governor and Ken Cuccinelli winning attorney general. Mr. McDonnell barely won Fairfax County when he beat Democrat Cray Deeds for the governor's mansion. Mr. Mcauliffe, in a final campaign pitch Monday night, tried to fire up Democratic voters in Fairfax County to get out the vote on Tuesday. Fairfax County, which voted for Biden by 70% in 2020, is Virginia's most populous county and grew over the last 10 years at a rate of 6% to 1.15 million people. Sorry, it brought.
Hit that.
How are our phones so different? This election cycle, the county became a focus of interest when county election board officials overwhelmingly called on Governor Ralph Northam to waive the signature requirement on absentee ballots that were cast by mail, as was done during the 2020 election. The 2020 provision was previously a statewide emergency pandemic measure, but was lifted at the end of June. However, Fairfax County's state of emergency remained intact. Interesting, right? Oh, very interesting.
So it looks like Fry, they still haven't declared a winner, but with Minneapolis reporting 92% of the precincts or the votes counted, Fry is with 43%. His next competitor, Nezhad, is that how you say her name? Nezhad? She's at 21%. I don't know why they're not giving Fry a check here. I don't think there's any chance that he's going to lose. I don't know the stats, but with only 8% left, you think that would be enough to declare him the winner. But so far, Fox 9 is declining to do so. And we haven't seen the latest on the referendum. Hopefully we'll see something soon.
In Virginia, 82% reported. Youngkin has 52.9%. Mcauliffe has 46.4%.
Let's look up, did you look up New Jersey? I just got a message from one of our audience members who said that New Jersey is much closer than what he expected.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Can you see what you got going on in New Jersey? So New York is called, at least for the mayor. We don't know about the other races, but I'm sure they're mostly all to Democrats that are going to win either re-election or election. The city that once voted for Rudy Giuliani, I think is a different city now. I don't think anyone in that city, very few people actually like Rudy Giuliani anymore, especially given his involvement in the 2020 election, post conflicts that occurred and his roles in them. I don't think he won many friends because of that.
No.
And I think that anyone who's even somewhat Republican probably left that city, or maybe even left it a long time ago.
Yeah.
What do you got? New Jersey?
trying to find. I'm trying to find live reports in New Jersey.
Right here. Go to NPR. Votes are coming in for New Jersey's governor race. Follow along. So this is NPR. Let's see if they got anything here. Here we go. Here's the New Jersey governor. So it's Jack. How do you say that name?
Chiatarelli.
Ooh.
Chiatarelli.
And he's up. Was this expected? So he's got 50.6% of the New Jersey vote. Only 38% are reporting thus far. And the Democrat, Philip Murphy, is at 48.6%. So there's still a lot of votes that need to be counted. Philip Murphy is the incumbent. So this is an empty seat like Virginia. Virginia is a vacated seat. Even though we learned that Mcauliffe was actually governor of Virginia for a term, which I don't know the whole circumstances behind why he was only there for a term.
I don't either.
I don't think he's the governor of Virginia who got caught with blackface. I think that was the prior one. I could be wrong though, but I don't know why he only ran for a term and then the other guy came in.
And now he's running again.
Maybe it had to do with
Clinton?
that.
Oh, maybe.
But yeah, and McAuliffe is a huge Clintonite. He was Bill Clinton's co-chair for his presidency. He was Hillary Clinton's chair for when she ran for president in 2008. The guy's got machine politics written all over him. I think that's his biggest downfall. You can just see it.
Some people probably love it. I mean, some people love
Not enough.
Hillary.
Not enough. But we'll see what happens out of Fairfax County.
Yeah.
Something tells me that they haven't counted all those votes in Fairfax County and that's going to have a major impact on these election results. And again, we read the report earlier.
Oh, here. Minneapolis police question.
Looks like vote no gets the check.
They gave it the check.
So Fox 9 is reporting
92%.
that the people of Minneapolis, 57% of the voters voted no to dismantling the Minneapolis Police Department.
43% voted
Which
yes.
is, amazing in a way.
Math, but
Amazing in a way. It's what we predicted. I think that the circumstances drove a lot of people to the conclusions. I even talked to some friends of mine who live in Minneapolis, and they were when the first initial days after George Floyd riots and after he was tragically killed, that they were very gung-ho about dismantling the police, defunding the police even. They used very strong language. The city council was behind it. Mayor Fry never was. And that's why he's easily going to win this election, is for probably one of the lowest moments of his life when he had to confront the BLM protesters and tell them. And I gained respect for the guy. It's probably when he actually became a leader, is when he came out and he said, no, I'm not for dismantling the police. He didn't say this, but I'm sure he's thinking it's a terrible idea. It's a horrible idea. So that's that. They're not going to do it. And Mayor Fry wins re-election easily as a result.
whereas one of his opponents, I think the one who got the second most votes, actually helped write the referendum.
So this guy, let's learn a little bit more about this Jack
Chiatarelli.
Chiatarelli.
I don't know how to say his name. I should know. I think
Chiatarelli?
it's Italian. Is he Italian?
Chiatarelli. Let's see what he says. What it says about him. Oops. Let's see who he is. Jack. Here he is. So it looks like he's a former member of the New Jersey General Assembly. Not going to pass. All right, we're going to read what Ballotpedia says. He's running for election governor of New Jersey on the ballot. He's a Republican. He's a member of the New Jersey General Assembly representing District 16. He assumed office in 2011. He left office in 2018, so he served for 7 years. He previously served as assistant minority whip.
He's telling us how to pronounce it. Cedarelli.
Cedarelli. Thank you,
I was
John.
way off.
Cedarelli.
Thank you.
Went to Seton Hall for his bachelor's, got his graduate at Seton Hall. His profession is he's an owner, publisher, Galen Publishing LLC. Ooh, I didn't know Melvin Carter was up for re-election too, is he?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. We need to look at
Oh,
St.
wow.
Paul too.
Okay, so we're getting the St. Paul results. Nobody's
0%
being
reported
reported
in
yet.
St. Paul.
What do you think about Melvin Carter? What does your gut say about Melvin Carter?
Do I think he'll win?
Yeah. He's been
I
a
don't
pretty
have-
terrible mayor.
I don't have any
of St.
great
Paul.
insight, to be
I
honest.
will say he hasn't done anything that great.
I
that I can
typically
think of.
have some opinion on this. I just don't
I
know.
think
a
he's
lot.
probably going to
Sadly,
win
even though I love St.
re-election
Paul.
because he's a likable guy. I think he's going to win re-election, even though he hasn't done a single good thing to advance the city, except for maybe one could argue the universal basic income. Like every child that's born in St. Paul, or not every child, but some
Mhm.
get a certain amount of money
yeah.
when they're born.
Yeah,
But it's
that's
only
right.
for certain people, not everybody.
I remember
But
that.
I think that his biggest asset is just he's a likable guy. You could probably have a lunch with him and have a great conversation with him about a wide variety of topics beyond public policy. He doesn't have any competition. It's amazing, though. I thought the police vote was going to be a little bit closer.
Closer?
Yeah.
Really?
CNN, GOP opens big lead in Virginia, race tightens in New Jersey. So they've changed their headline. CNN's prior headline was tight race in Virginia, and this is when it was 55 to 54.
Now it's 52.9 to 46. Youngkin in the lead, 82% reported. That's according to the New
Wow.
York Times.
And do we have any updates about what's happening in Fairfax County? Do we have any updates in Fairfax County? See if we get any more information from WJLA. Nothing new here. They said there's just technical difficulties with the thumb drives. That doesn't even make any sense.
That's exactly what
A
I just
thumb
read.
drive-
A technical issue
a
with the
thumb
thumb
drive
drive.
is-
The votes are stored on. Why are all the votes stored on a thumb drive?
Well, people have brought up that that's a security concern because they're so easy to hide, to stick in your pocket, to replace.
County officials said there is a paper trail of votes cast and staff are working on them as of now. This is from WUSA 9 about Fairfax County.
It's among the small number of problems reported at polls Tuesday. Tuesday morning, an Alexandria voter told 7 News reporter Nick Minock, he's from Minnesota, that she arrived at George Washington Middle School to vote and poll workers gave her 2 ballots. He says she requested an incident report to be filed and she asked all folders to be reviewed. According to Alexandria General Register, Angela Turner, a poll worker, made a mistake and handed someone 2 ballots. She says the paper ballots sometimes get stuck together and that all staff were retrained and rotated through. And in Loudoun County, Virginia, government office phones were temporarily offline. Officials arrived at offices this morning and worked with vendors to get the phones running again. So far, not a whole lot of reports of weird stuff, except for rescanning because of a thumbnail
I
drive
really don't
malfunction.
understand the thumb drive.
No, they should work perfectly. There should be no dysfunction with the thumb drive.
Agreed.
But we'll keep watching.
Let's see. Fairfax. I don't know if this really matters, but a little bit more information. It says 5,000 of the 20,000 ballots have been rescanned now. Next report that comes out should reflect that per officials.
That what?
5,000 of the 20,000.
I wish
have
we
been
could see
rescanned.
like what difference that made.
Yep, same.
Were they not even counted? Like,
I know. Apparently, the thumb drive holds 20,000 ballots from 4 early voting sites. Rescanning the thousands of ballots from those early voting sites means early voting numbers reported a while back are incomplete.
interesting.
Yep. Very suspicious.
Susie, bring that into your room, honey.
You can bring your water bottle in, sweetie.
This race is tightening up. New Jersey governor, according to
course.
NPR, 49.9% to 49.3%. So the Republican has 535,128 votes. The Democrat has 527,901 votes. It's a difference of like 8,000 votes, plus or minus a few hundred. Wow. Polls have shown, this is according to NPR, polls have shown for months that Governor Phil Murphy, a 64-year-old Democrat, has a comfortable lead, as much as 11 points, according to a Monmouth University poll released last week. How are these guys so off with their polls? Obviously, it's not an 11-point race. This is a micro percentage difference. It'd be embarrassing if that was my polling company.
Yeah, no kidding.
To be off by that much. It's like, how are
Are
they doing
really
their
that
samples?
bad, or do they try to make?
Well, that's a debate.
Yeah,
Because you can create voter apathy by creating this perception that the race is blown out.
right.
And a lot of times it is, but they still do it to create apathy. That's one of the things you'll notice, like in Minnesota, anytime there's like a challenger, like I guarantee you, whoever's Senator Amy Klobuchar's challenger, the next time she runs, if she runs again, the papers are gonna talk about what a long shot it is to beat her, and it is.
Yeah.
But how she's most popular one ever, and they'll downplay whoever her competitor is.
Yeah.
And it's all to bolster one side and to deflate the other. But so far, we don't have any checks in New Jersey governor or Virginia governor.
Yeah, pollsters are the new weathermen and weatherwomen. That's very true.
Huh?
He said pollsters are the new weathermen and weatherwomen. It's so true. I don't even check the weather because I'm like, oh, it's always wrong anyways, right?
Mm-hmm.
85% reported in Virginia in their gubernatorial race. 52.5 for Youngkin, 46.8 for Mcauliffe.
Read this.
Democrat Mcauliffe facing.
Read the source.
This is from Yahoo News. Gary Langer. Democrat Mcauliffe facing 52% unfavorable numbers in Virginia governor race. Preliminary exit poll data shows. A more closely divided electorate than a year ago, underwater ratings for Joe Biden and former President Trump alike, and a popularity deficit for the Democratic candidate define the hard-fought off-year contest for Virginia governor in preliminary exit poll results. Among challenges for the Democrats, who've won all statewide races in Virginia dating to 2013, is the lack of personal appeal of their candidate, former Governor Terry McAuliffe. Just 45% see him favorably versus 52% unfavorably in exit poll results so far. Republican Glenn Youngkin does better on this score, 53 to 43% favorable to unfavorable. Compounding McAuliffe's challenges are negative views of Biden's job performance. More Virginia voters disapprove than approve, 54 to 45%.
Intensity, which can influence turnout, is particularly poor for Biden. Nearly twice as many strongly disapprove of his work in office, 45%, than strongly approve, which is 24%.
Wow.
Given those views, turnout has shifted from a year ago. Virginia voters report having split evenly between Biden and Trump in 2020, 46 to 46%, indicating that many Biden supporters were sitting this contest out since he won the state by a 10-point margin. Trump, for his part, is no more of an attraction. He's seen favorably by 42% in these preliminary results, unfavorably by 53%, an 11-point negative score. Youngkin kept Trump at arm's length in the campaign, as did Mcauliffe with Biden, save 2 joint campaign rallies for reasons that seem evident.
Wait, what are those reasons that seem evident?
I know.
And I mean, I love that. Yeah, he came there twice. They're trying to
Yeah.
downplay it. He came there
Mcauliffe
twice.
kept
And
Biden.
is Obama's name in here? Because he went there too. Did they mention that at all?
Not yet. That'll come, I'm
Okay.
sure. I'm sure it's very comprehensive reporting. These are preliminary exit poll results, including early voters, and can change as data are updated throughout the evening. Very true. The race is being watched as an early test of Democratic vulnerabilities under Biden with an eye toward the 2022 midterm elections. More Virginia voters say a reason for their vote was to show opposition to Biden, 29%, than support for him, 21%. Still many more, 47%, say he wasn't a factor in their choice for governor. In terms of preliminary exit poll estimates among voter groups, the suburbs are a key battleground in Virginia. So 98%, is it 96 or 98% reporting from Minneapolis?
Did they put a check button?
No.
What's it say next to his name? That I.
Oh, maybe.
The race for mayor, only 2% reporting here. On the threshold, 15% though, to take this. Is that right?
Yeah, Melvin. It's not even close.
Melvin Carter at 54%.
with only 2%
With only 2% reporting. Right below him has 13%. Right below that is 10%. So Melvin Carter, 54% with only 2% reporting.
Unbelievable. St. Paul speaks.
St. Paul
What's the old
speaks.
saying? You get the kind of government, people get the kind of government they deserve.
So St. Paul question, rent control, only 1% is reporting. 55% voted yes, 45% voted no. But again, that's only 1% reporting. What about Minneapolis? Did we hear about rent control in Minneapolis yet?
But I think that one was closer, but we don't have an update on it.
Okay. In Virginia, 85% reported. Youngkin, 52.5%. Mcauliffe, 46.8%. No changes there yet.
Read this article shared by one of our viewers. I'll send it to you.
Okay. 87% reported now in Virginia. Youngkin has 52%, went down a tiny bit. Mcauliffe has 47.3%.
There you go. I just sent it to you.
Is it this or different?
I texted to you.
Is it that though,
Nope.
or different? That's a different thing?
Yep. Did you get it?
Oh, yep. From the Star Tribune. Minnesota election results 2021. I don't know who the journalist is yet, but this is the Star Trib. The 2021 election season has attracted extraordinary attention. The events of the past 2 years, a worldwide pandemic that profoundly disrupted daily life, and the killing of George Floyd that sparked a bitter debate over policing, race, and justice, are playing out in contests for city councils and school boards. Both Minneapolis and St. Paul will elect mayors in ranked choice voting and also consider ballot questions that could shape the future of both cities.
Wow.
What?
I think they're calling the winner here.
In Virginia?
It says CNN politics. Democrat Terry McAuliffe served as governor from 2014 to 2018. He's trying to reclaim the job against Republican Glenn Youngkin. I guess they haven't declared the winner yet, but they pretty much are. Keep going. Sorry.
Minneapolis City Question. City Question 1, described as the Strong Mayor Amendment. This measure would change the charter to prevent council members from giving individual directions to city staff, including department heads. This question will pass if 51% of the people voting on it select yes. Currently, 96% of the precincts are reporting. 52.5% voted yes on this. 47.4% voted no.
And which one?
On City Question 1, the Strong Mayor Amendment. City Question 2 is about the police department. We talked about that already. Again, 96% of precincts reporting, 56.4% voted no, 43.5% voted yes.
So this is from the AP. Youngkin makes up ground with suburbanites. So a year after Donald Trump lost Virginia by 10 percentage points, Republican, this is from AP, Glenn Youngkin is in a tight race for governor against Democrat Terry McAuliffe, thanks to shifting support from some key voter groups. Youngkin has made slight gains with suburbanite voters 45 years and older and voters in households earning $50,000 or less when compared to Trump in his 2020 loss to Democrat Joe Biden, according to AP Votecast, a survey of voters. That's helped make Tuesday's race tighter than originally expected, sparking concern among Democrats as they look on the 2022 midterm elections. Here's a snapshot of what matters most to voters based on preliminary results from the Votecast, a survey of more than 2,500 voters in Virginia. Small shifts in support. Both Democrats and Republicans pulled together familiar coalitions. McAuliffe is the clear choice for voters under 45. So under 45 voted Democrat. Women, Black voters, moderates, and college graduates, while men, rural and small town voters, and white evangelicals are squarely in Youngkin's corner. But small shifts might make a difference for Youngkin. Voters 45 years and older, a group that's split about evenly between Biden and Trump, are slightly more likely to back Youngkin over McAuliffe. Youngkin is performing better with suburban voters, a group that helped Democrats win elections during the Trump era by rejecting his brand of politics. Youngkin, who lives in Northern Virginia suburb, is competitive with McAuliffe among suburban voters. Last year, about 6 in 10 backed Biden. So they're comparing it to Biden and Trump. I really don't think you can compare them that greatly, though, because the way these two line up, like Youngkin compared to McAuliffe, it's different than how Trump and Biden lined up.
Yeah,
especially
totally.
Given all the circumstances that we found ourselves in 2020 with COVID raging, with all the other things that were going on, the riots across the country, the constant drumbeat in the media, the negative stuff. Like, I think that had a real impact on people.
I think it did too, yeah.
And,
How could it not?
And I think that when you compare McAuliffe and Youngkin, it's just a different dynamic.
It is, yeah.
Like, Youngkin to me seems like a more likable, reasonable guy. He's not, doesn't seem sleazy.
Yeah.
You know, where this other McAuliffe guy, I think he just turned a lot of people off. And there's attachment to the Clinton. There's just a lot of red flags with the guy. A lot of red flags. I certainly wouldn't want him to be governor of our state.
I wouldn't either, but again, people are different. A lot of people really love the Clintons, and But yeah, I mean, I'm with you on the.
So I don't know if Fry won. What about the New Jersey?
Oh, look at that again. 87% reported in Virginia.
And what is it?
About the same. I mean, it's a little tighter. 52% still for Youngkin and 47.3% for McAuliffe. So makes me nervous.
See, I'm looking at Drudge Report, and they seem to indicate that Youngkin won.
Do they?
He probably did.
Yeah.
But like I was saying earlier, I don't think they're going to declare him the winner until they count every single vote.
Yeah.
Because that's just how it is. That's how they do it.
Yeah.
But look at that. Republicans take Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
Fresh start for party. the headlines: Independents who backed Biden by 19 points turn away. And then right here on the Drudge, Dem goes down, Biden bruised. Results: Mcauliffe 47.4, Youngkin 51.9. Is that consistent with what we have? That seems to be shrinking.
I have Youngkin. At 52. Let's see, updated 3 minutes ago. It'll update again soon. MSNBC is acting like Youngkin won in Virginia.
So I think in Virginia they do their lieutenant governor races separate, like you don't run as a ticket. But according to this article in Yahoo News, Virginia Lieutenant Governor Republican Winsome Sears defeated Democrat Ayala. How do you say that? Ayala in Virginia's lieutenant governor's race.
Pretty name.
Sears is the first Black woman elected to a statewide office in Virginia. Wow.
That's cool.
That is cool. Ayala is a state lawmaker in the House of Delegates, and Sears is a former legislator. Former Republican Del Winsome Sears defeated Ayala, kind of reminds me of Aya, a Democratic member of the Virginia House of Delegates. Wow. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that is. More carjackings.
So the only other race, well, I mean, I guess I still haven't. Let's see what Fox News is saying about it. Oh, wow. We should watch this. They're saying they have a lot of votes to count.
Oh, great.
I
So
knew
this
they're
is
not
Fox
they're not
News.
going to declare a winner.
This is
of this.
McAuliffe saying,
Is there any verbiage here? No.
the headline says a lot of votes to count. Minneapolis carjackings. In 2020, there were 405 total. 2021, 457 to date. And 2020 was already 3 times higher than in 2019. So it's a lot. It's a big rise. Right?
Elections and COVID. What a terrible combination.
Yeah, no kidding. Goodness.
So have we not gotten, read this Gateway Pundit. I know a lot of people think this is a conspiratorial site. Christina Layla.
This is by Christina Layla. Fairfax County is delayed in reporting vote count and won't have results by 8 p.m. deadline. It's election day in Virginia. Go ahead.
No, let's not read that one. I don't want to get word.
Yeah.
Let's see what MSNBC says.
Did you see this comment? MSNBC is acting like.
That's what I'm looking at.
Oh, okay. $26,000 vote difference in Virginia.
MSNBC says Republican, this is their website, Republican Youngkin leads Virginia's governor's race, which remains too close to call, according to NBC News. Here's one thing I think that really came to light from 2020 is like, why do we give these news outlets, especially the biggest ones, the power to call these elections? Like, who gives them the authority to
Did
make
Fox
their
News
decisions?
call Biden over Trump when it was way less close than
In
this?
Arizona.
Yeah.
And it took Arizona weeks to determine
Right.
who won that.
Right.
And it was still
Yeah.
extremely close. It was an 11,000 vote margin in Arizona. Yet
Yeah.
Fox News, on election night called it for Biden, and that sent the momentum that way. Because if that would have been up in the air, it would have been a longer time that we would have had to have sifted through everything that went through that day.
Yeah, Mcauliffe headquarters, I don't know if they're partying, but they're at least saying there's still a lot of votes left to count. So,
McAuliffe says there's more votes,
yeah, they gave themselves the authority totally.
but they've done it for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
like decades and decades and decades.
It's crazy.
Great.
Cedarelli is up 51% to 48.2% in New Jersey.
Wow,
Surprise.
breaking away. 40,000
McAuliffe looks
votes.
unusually happy.
That's crazy. What are you
That
watching
is
him
crazy.
on? What do you see him on? I'm gonna go see.
Yeah, it makes me nervous too. What are you you're checking the kids?
Keep talking.
Seeing if I can find. Oh, MSNBC.
People also watch.
McAuliffe, a lot of votes to count. Okay. Want to see what McAuliffe's has to say.
Recommended.
Dun-dun-dun.
Breaking news.
Streaming.
Look at NBC 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
Virginia gubernatorial race in dead heat.
2 hours ago, NBC said, that's crazy. Said it was in dead heat when it was like a 9-point difference.
Yep.
Yeah, that is so interesting. I always wonder in these conversations, like, am I just being a victim? Am I victimizing myself? Is this not accurate? 4 days ago, Harris said this: what happens in Virginia will in large part determine what happens in 2022, 2024, and on.
Advertisement. 30 seconds you can skip to video in 5.
It's probably true, for better or for worse, right? Harris said 4 days ago, what happens in Virginia will in many ways dictate what happens in 2022, 2024, and beyond.
Started your career in real estate from the comfort, which they have already declared. and this is the release. More Virginians would have voted
Let's see.
if they had childcare, and Democrats have accomplished what we promised for years.
Oh, they're blaming it on infrastructure.
Long-term care for the elderly, and vision and dental care.
They're starting to blame it on infrastructure.
That's why they won't concede. Yeah, you're totally right. Who's blaming what on infrastructure?
Well,
88%
Chuck Todd.
reported.
Chuck Todd's on here blabbering about infrastructure bill, and if they would have passed the infrastructure bill, then Virginia would have went to McAuliffe.
Oh.
It's because people aren't getting the pre-K and the free college and all these things in there.
So 88% reported in Virginia, 51.7 to Youngkin, 47.6 to McAuliffe.
I don't think they're going to declare a winner.
No, probably not.
Those young people who didn't turn out tonight, they weren't marching for bridges and roads. They were marching for equality and criminal justice. Joshua Johnson, are you going to be as fired up as Cornell and blaming everybody in the Democratic Party?
Let's see.
I'm not sure I blame every single guy. I'm sure it's one of two guys, probably. But I do think this is about
Eric Adams won in New York City.
for Democrats in this country should have been a layup. And it's not that they're not making any progress. They are moving forward on the bill, but Terry McAuliffe.
The thing I need to learn or figure out is what streaming software I need to get. Because what I want to be able to do is stream with other people. So if we needed a guest,
Yeah.
say friend of the show, John, or I would like to set up debates too,
Yeah.
but be able
Oh,
to
yeah.
stream multiple people in different areas
Yeah.
and have split screens. So I want to be able to do that. I'm going to be able to pull up the screens so that we can pull up our screen and show stuff, run videos that we can. What other things do we want to be able to do? We want to be able to like have our own graphs or
Yeah,
imagery,
that's what I was gonna say. Is there a
project
way we can-
imagery
yeah.
On the screen so that when we're making points, we can have graphs and data and figures that show it.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to.
But the
show.
split screen
Yeah, I agree.
would
about
be
the
great
dates.
because it's just interesting. We can have different topics, different influencers who want to come on and debate, kind of the heated issues of the day, mandates. I'd love to have some debates on just like, the Christians. I'd like to get two prominent Christians, like a left one and a right one, or a conservative one and a progressive one. And what's the role of Christianity in the modern world? Like where does the faith in the Bible end and reality begin? If there is a line, how to vote, your conscience, what that actually means. Like to do some things on just like homeschooling too, homeschooling support or issues surrounding homeschool, because there's more and more parents right now that are homeschooling. I think a lot of people are homeschooling who have no idea what to do.
Yeah.
And they need to be reached out to.
Yeah.
But these voters in the middle, the ones who haven't been paying attention for the last 10, 20 years, the ones who are just starting to wake up,
Yeah.
to reach out to these people and to let them know that they have a home.
Yeah, those are good. Health, relationships, economy. Yeah, I agree. Addiction. Yeah.
Mental health.
Totally.
Alternatives to education, different ways to make education better.
Yeah, agreed, Tom. Addiction, alcoholism.
Moments away, Republican candidate expected to address supporters as Mcauliffe refuses to concede. That's that headline. Fox News.
Who needs to figure out a fancy way to do graphs? We can just do that, right?
This is same old, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean,
let's hope not.
But people would say the same about Trumpster, right?
Well, the same old is, why do they have glitches like this? Yeah. This is the year 2021. Like, we should be able to do our voting seamless.
He said, read it again. Oh, he couldn't see. Moments away, Republican candidate expected to address.
It's just saying that
supporters as
Youngkin's
Mcauliffe refuses to concede.
Yeah, Youngkin's going to address his supporters soon as Mcauliffe refuses to concede. I wonder if they'll play it on this terrible station here.
We're watching. What are we watching? NBC?
Tell them I like to watch all the progressive stations. Just because I like to see how everything's being portrayed.
Yeah, you do. Which is good, but I feel like I hear the bullet points of it no matter what. But yeah.
Over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. But still, it's good to hear. I mean, good to know what so many hear.
I would imagine that I don't know why it's the only one I can find. That's Fox 9.
Yeah.
This it right here.
We'll see. Wasn't Mcauliffe a Clinton henchman? Yes, Mcauliffe was a Clinton. He worked on Bill Clinton's Bill Clinton's part of his
there we go.
Tone.
Huh?
He worked on Mcauliffe was on Hillary's campaign and Bill Clinton's.
He's Bill Clinton's co-chair for his presidential election. He was Hillary Clinton's chair of his whole campaign in 2008. Yeah. So when she lost to President Obama, former President Obama. Just waiting.
What?
Just some of the crypto stuff that comes on my plate. Let's see while we're waiting for Youngkin, I'm just going to do a quick check on my Ethereum. So Ethereum, which is the second largest cryptocurrency, has hit all-time highs. It's sitting at $4,587.02 in Ethereum coin. That's amazing. That is totally amazing.
89% reported now. In Virginia, 51.7 to Youngkin, 47.6 to Mcauliffe. Gosh, is Mcauliffe just going to refuse?
Let's see what Bitcoin has. Bitcoin did hit its all-time high about a week ago, and it since has gone down a tad. But it's on its way going back up again. $63,000.20 or $63,020.29. That's what one Bitcoin is. Its all-time high it's basically there again. Yep, it's at its all-time high. It's probably going to keep going up a little bit from here too.
How do you feel about the economy in non-crypto terms?
It's just like crypto. It's just kind of a fake bubble. So Youngkin still hasn't gone on. It's going to be really interesting to see what Youngkin says here.
Yeah. So we're watching on NBC. It's just Youngkin's. I wish we could show this. I mean, there's not a lot to see. It's just all the people holding signs.
That's the other thing we got to look into are the rules of streaming content. You know, like what content you can use and what content that you can't. I don't really fully understand the difference. You know, because if you use certain content, you can get banned right away. Like if you use certain songs, you'll get banned.
Yeah.
Or not banned, but you'll get strikes.
Yeah.
And you get 3 strikes and you're out.
I think the economy, though, I don't know. I mean, I'm not an economist or a numbers person. I just think life is getting more and more expensive for everyone. And yeah, it worries me. I don't know what the future, I worry enough for myself, but I really worry about the next generation, how they're going to survive. And I'm probably being hyperbolic, but I feel like it's just getting worse and more expensive. And
inflation's here to stay.
Yeah. And the only real solution is going to be like welfare from government. And yet that's not.
And housing shortages are probably here to stay for a while too.
Yeah.
But it's a great time to buy.
Yeah. Oh, there he is. Or
Youngkin?
there someone is.
I'm going to go turn it up.
Okay, we'll listen. Some shelves at Cub looked like empty.
Is this his wife?
I don't know.
Oh no.
Did you trip over Halloween candy? Every time I've been to Target, they seem out of things. And I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be like hyperbolic. Maybe it has nothing to do with broader issues, but in both Minnesota and Florida, Target has been out of weird things that I feel like they shouldn't really be out of. Some woman, noodles. Oh, that's.
We're going to have a party. We're going to celebrate tonight. Thank you all for what you're doing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being with Glenn, who can be here to celebrate electing the next governor of Virginia tonight.
$11 for pasta sauce. That's insane. So some woman was just talking at the Youngkin thing. She said we're going to celebrate tonight.
The DNC chair tonight, Jamie Harrison, made sure to really kind of listen to the parents' concerns about what's being taught in school or not.
The person interviewing me said that, critical race theory, and it's taught in public schools in Virginia. Like, guess what?
Unbelievable.
Oh, look, they just said it. That's what I was saying.
What?
They were like, how can critical race theory be taught in schools? It's a law theory. That's what he just said.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Mcauliffe will not concede. I want to know what he said. Business Insider, Glenn Youngkin defeats Terry McAuliffe.
New York Times. Oh.
And so I think this is a pushback against the insanity going on at so many different levels. Now, politically, this is, I think, such a devastating loss. I'm trying to sort of put it in perspective. It reminds me a little bit of the loss of the 2 Georgia Senate seats for the Republicans right after 2020. But in the case of that Georgia,
Yeah, there's no mention of former President Obama going to Virginia.
That's funny.
They're just going to
They
make Biden look bad.
conveniently left that out.
Yeah. This is not about Trump. Trump, 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 Trump.
Manchin has got to see what is going on in the country. And West Virginia went by Trump by how much? I forgot that was so much. So
Who's talking?
shut this whole thing down. And
Laura
why don't you
Ingraham.
come tomorrow and say, do a
Oh, okay.
I had a
I should have
feeling.
known. So I mean, it's a great question. I think Youngkin won, except I don't see anyone officially reporting that he did, and McAuliffe
Business
isn't.
Insider has.
They did.
Yep. They report, but that's not a major news source. But I think they're just putting 2 and 2 together. It's pretty unbelievable, though, like how they resist so much to declaring that Youngkin won. Like they won't do it. They're not going to do it tonight. And it's scarier to think of why they're not. Like, are they gonna find a whole bunch of new votes somewhere? Are they gonna find a whole bunch of absentees still that need to be counted? Are they gonna recount and rescan absentees? Like, what's the plan here?
Which is he's waiting to speak until he gets a major news outlet to call it, probably. But this is how people feel about Trump too, right?
What?
Major news outlets called that Trump lost.
Well, not on the night of election. It took 3 or 4 days to finally do
Yeah.
it. Remember? They just did it.
Yeah.
in that county, so he seems to be holding his own. You go back to 2017, this is where we did.
Yeah.
So that's what's happening. That's a bunch of Bergen County up here.
I'm tired.
You have the Republican here hanging on a way that a lot of people didn't expect. Let me just go back 4 years to show you what the result was there. Murphy was an easy winner in Bergen County, so maybe these numbers hold up. Maybe and keep it a tight race, Laura.
I've got a feeling. I don't know what else to say, ladies and gentlemen.
Bedtime starts at 11 p.m.
Ooh, we got 5 subscribers. Thank you, everybody who's subscribed. Thank you to everyone who's sharing our show. Thank you, everyone who's tuned in.
Yes,
It's incredible to get the subscribers, though.
it is. Yeah.
And our next plan of action before our next show, which we're going to write, even though it's going to be live, we're going to write it. This one we didn't write. We're just like, we're going to go, there's some action. But for the next one, we're going to write it.
Yep.
It's going to be shorter,
Yep.
concise, changing topics. We're going to have a whole set topic.
Yep.
And then before that, this is my point, is we're going to get an email list together, not of everybody we know, people who would actually watch the show who aren't going to trash us. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to fight.
I mean, everyone's welcome to.
I know.
It's not like
Yeah, I'm
we're
just saying,
trying
I
to-
don't want to fight or get trashed by friends or family. It's an awful feeling.
Well, it's actually part of why we decided to do this is because I
From Facebook.
think it's important for everyone to use whatever voice you have, but social media just
You're not going to get far arguing with your friends and your family about
Mhm.
politics. It's just like religion. People just believe what they believe.
Yeah.
And the
which
last
they have the
person,
right to do.
the
like,
last person somebody wants to listen to try to change your mind is somebody close to them.
yeah,
You know, and
which I totally respect,
Yeah.
and I respect them. And
in Facebook has just turned into a conglomeration of a bunch of armchair political hacks who literally condemn and hate on each other, and it's like that's not constructive.
Yeah.
Like we all know where people fall in line. Like if you're in Facebook, you pretty much know where people's politics are. How many people are changing their minds? Some.
Very few.
There's been people who have changed their minds about mandates. I know that. But
Best way to change someone's mind is to make them laugh. That's probably true. I've always wished I was a funny person and not. I have a great sense of humor. I like laughing at other people. Not at other people, but like at funny things.
the best way to change somebody's mind is to send them to a concentration camp, a quarantine camp,
Terrible.
or counseling.
Counseling.
Re-education. That's the right one. I got a
excuse
feeling.
I'm child.
John
I
did
changed
change
my
his
mind
mind a
this
lot.
year. It's a sign of strength.
John
to change
became
your mind.
woke.
I have changed my mind on some things, and maybe social media has played a part. Like we have talked about this, and I do think the things that you hear and see make, have an impact on you. Ooh, that's their new lieutenant governor. Now it's just people cheering, but no Youngkin yet.
Any declarations?
Excuse me.
Wow. CNN, Minneapolis rejects policing overhaul. The Republican is challenging former Democratic Terry McAuliffe in the high-stakes governor's race. And the funniest one is New Jersey. Is nobody's even paying attention.
I
New
know,
Jersey.
even though Citarelli,
Yeah,
that I know
he's
how
winning.
how to pronounce his name.
Citarelli, he's winning. He's up by 4 points.
Wow.
More than 4 points. It's amazing. I just said that
Oh,
you
you said you
changed
got
your
woke.
mind. You got
You
woke.
got woke.
You became woke.
Virginia, 91% reporting according to the New York Times. Youngkin, 51.6. McCullough, 47.7. I still haven't seen anyone actually call it though. Can you go to bed?
Yeah, we'll close it up.
Awake, not woke.
Well, I think Tony and Leona are going to declare Youngkin the winner. And it looks to me that
Yeah, I agree.
that New Jersey,
Citarelli,
Citarelli,
51.8%.
it's only 50% in.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot that can
57% in.
change.
Still, Citarelli's got a lead.
Well, guys, thanks for being here for the first show.
Thanks,
Appreciate
everyone.
the help.
Have a great night.
First of many that won't follow this format usually, but God
Yeah.
bless you all. Good night.